Welcome everyone. It is Tuesday, August the 8th, and welcome everyone to the regular council session of the Municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc. The Municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc acknowledges that it is located on Treaty 21 territory. We are thankful to the generations of people that have taken care of this land, including the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, the Munsee Delaware First Nation, and the Oneida Nation of the Thames. Before we begin, are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll begin. We have 3 public meetings this evening, and welcome everyone in the gallery tonight. We'll go with public meeting number 1. The purpose of this public meeting is to consider an application for rezoning for the property located at 130 Beach Street, Strathroy, Roy Lewis Company SMB Limited. I have a motion to open the public meeting. Deputy Mayor McGuire, second by Councillor Canis. All in favor? Carried. I have a report to be presented by the planner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. As noted, this is a public meeting, and it's a public meeting for a rezoning application at 130 Beach Street. This is a property that is located in the central portion of Strathroy, just south of Metcalfe and east of Caradoc Street South, on the south side of Beach Street. It is a slightly larger than average lot on this street, and as such the applicants are looking to remove the existing home that's on the property and replace it with 4 townhouse units. So the single block with 4 townhouse units, 2 parking spaces per unit, and a common area in the rear. This notes a private road, and what I mean by that is 2 separate private driveways. The concept would place a front porch that would be common for all 4 units, and then these parking spaces would be located on the property. A total of 4 within each of these 2 areas for each of the units. This application is before you tonight as a statutory public meeting. It was circulated in advance, and the staff and agency comments are found in the report. One comment that was made after the report was completed is on file with you this evening from one of the neighbors. I believe they may be attending tonight's meeting as well, but in the event that they have not, that was included in the material before you, as well as a response from the applicant about their timing. Specifically addressing the idea that the property hasn't been cared for to the level that one would expect. And so there's 2 points that I would make on that. One is that the applicant has noted that it is not being occupied currently, and that may be part of the reason. And then secondly, that if it is a situation where the property standards become less than what would be expected in Strathroy, they can always speak to bylaw enforcement, and that conversation can be had directly with the owners of the property if those people on the street don't wish to contact the property owner directly. Again, the report is on file for this evening's public meeting, and it goes through all of the policy and analysis. What is being sought this evening is a zoning bylaw amendment to change the zone category from an R1 to an R2 to allow these additional units. The recommendations are in the report, but staff are recommending approval of the proposed rezoning, and a draft zoning bylaw is on tonight's agenda for council's consideration. Those are my submissions for this evening, but happy to answer any questions as we move forward with the application.
Thank you for that, Tim. Thanks for the report. Are there any comments in support of the proposed rezoning? That is Nick.
Yes, Your Worship.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Excuse me. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Nick Dajak. I'm the planner of the district following Moniz. I'm here representing the owner and applicant, Mr. Brody Lewis, who I believe is in attendance in the council chambers this evening. As we know, these types of small projects are necessary for communities. We want to continue to grow in a more efficient and compact manner, so that change is of the essence here. However, these small sites also come with several expected and unexpected technical issues that need careful consideration, some out-of-the-box thinking. So, not to mention time and money. I believe I've been talking with this owner for better part of almost 2 years. So this site has undergone a couple of changes, extensive engineering review, just to make sure that the site can work and then function properly. And in terms of the items that Mr. Williams had mentioned, the landowner, this site was planned for demolition and more easy in the zoning process. So some of those comments that were received are due to know what happens and that this site being ready for demolition almost a year ago. So we're trying to make the site pretty much under construction as soon as possible and make it efficient so that the site is more kept and new, and we get new tenants and more foot traffic in the area. So look forward to that coming. But I do want to mention that, or thank Mr. Williams for Mr. Williams and Mr. DeRitter actually for working with the applicant and SBM to move this application along. There has been a couple of design issues like I mentioned, so we have been working with them to resolve the issues, make sure that stormwater and everything is functioning on site as it should. And obviously we're in agreement with the staff recommendation for approval of this rezoning application. So I'll leave it there. If there's any questions, myself and Mr. Lewis are available to answer questions.
Thank you for that, Nick. If there's questions, we'll go to them later. Are there any comments in opposition to the proposed rezoning? Yes, you go to the podium. Yep.
I don't know if it's my turn to speak or not.
Yeah, if you're here for opposition, if you want to identify yourself, we'd be more than welcome.
I'm Mary Body. I live right across the street from 130 Beach Street. And my main concern is the water table. It's so incredibly high, it always has been. And all the time, like every time that it rains, it's virtually a lake every single time. And I mean, if you consult with the town, I mean, they would, you know, agree with that. It's always been an issue. And when they say that the stormwater, they're going to be building a like a reservoir of sorts in the backyard, I don't see how that can happen when the water table is so high and the runoff of water and the snow melt and everything. It's just, that's a main concern for me. As far as the property not being maintained, I don't care about that. I know it's going to be demoed, and a new place is going to be, you know, going to be up, but I don't know about if it can handle 4 townhouses. That's my main concern, because down the road we have the women's shelter, and they're building, I think it's 20 new units for, you know, like they're expanding. And like the infrastructure, the sewage is, the sewer system is very old. I mean, there's turn of the century homes on that road. I mean, there's a lot of yellow brick road, like houses, and the infrastructure beneath where the sewage is incredibly old. Like, I'm concerned, will it be able to like withstand, you know, will it compromise it, overload the system, so to speak? So that's my main concern, because like I said, the water table's always been high in that area. Like, you would never be able to build a pool or an in-ground pool or anything like that. So when they say they have, you know, the reservoir for the runoff of water, I don't understand like where the excess is going to go. That's my main concern. And the rezoning too. I mean, that's not really sitting right with me as well. You know, it would be, ideally, it would be great to have you know, 2 homes, like a semi. But a fourplex just seems excessive to me. It just seems like a lot for a road has had no work done on it, and the infrastructure is old. It's old. So that's my concern.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments in opposition?
Hello?
Yeah, Tyler?
Hello? Yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
My name is Tyler. My name is Tyler Tremblay, and I live at 136 Beach Street, the house directly to the left of this property. And I also share the same concerns as Aaron due to the infrastructure of our street. Every time it rains, like she said, our street becomes a massive flood. I have 2 daughters that regularly play on the street, and with the increase from the women's shelter and now this proposed home, I have fears for my children even being able to play on the road anymore. As soon as they go out of the side of my house and then they turn right, they're going to be, you know, bombarded with vehicles that are now going to be parked with 4 parking spaces all the way down to the right. We don't have a proper sidewalk implemented on the street, so my children's only course of action is to walk on the road. Our street is now going to be a very high density street with all these, you know, new homes and everything like that. Right now it's going from a single family home to potentially 20 people could be living next door to me. The noise and, you know, privacy alone is a massive concern to me. You know, also to do with the property values, what this will do to every home around us, and how this could decrease our property values with, you know, people not wanting to live next to something such, you know, high density. The possible turnover of people coming onto the street with the women's shelter, and now, you know, tenants living in this home. Tenants are not something that always stay the same. We could be seeing a high turnover of people coming onto my road, and, you know, the safety concerns on that alone is very concerning to me. I would say if they do choose to rezone this property, that the town speak on the behalf of the street and the tenants and owners around and ask for possibly a privacy fence to be erected around this property to, you know, shelter some of the noise concerns and privacy that will be affected by this. And those are my main concerns that I have.
Excuse me. Thank you for those comments. They're appreciated. Are there any other comments in opposition? Seeing none, we'll open up to comments and questions from members of council. Any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Wilsey.
Just when I was reading through, there's a section in the staff report that states that this proposal is temporary in nature and will allow for the adjacent industrial use to operate efficiently. I'm assuming that's a typo, but if we're going to approve that, we should modify that and take that out, unless it needs to be there.
Okay. Director Huff or Tim, could you comment on Councillor Wilsey's comment?
I'm happy to, through the mayor, that is a typographic error, and apologies.
Councillor Palmer?
Through you to Director Strauss, I'm wondering if you'd like to make any comments in regard to the infrastructure on the street and the watering and the sidewalks, and if there's any if there's anything on the agenda for addressing that on the street.
Through the chair to Councillor Palmer, I expected this, so I popped up where staff had previously been working on a 10-year capital forecast. I opened my 10-year capital forecast, and for next year, this segment of roadway is proposed for a design, and then construction would follow the following year. So that would incorporate new sewers, new infrastructure, sidewalk, new road, street lights, everything of that nature to our urban standard.
Any other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor McGuire.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering, Your Worship, if there is either Tim Williams or Strick Baldinelli representative that can comment about how stormwater will be managed on the property in its basic format. I'm not looking for a detailed explanation.
Mr. Williams?
I'm happy to start with that through the chair. If the applicant wishes to add to it, they're certainly more than welcome to do so. So what I can speak to is the review that was done by staff looked at the fact that this is going to be a building that is occupying 22 and change, 23% coverage of the property. It's approximately 480 square meters. If this was split into two lots and single detached homes were placed on it, that would also be 22% on each of those lots, and you'd be looking at you know, a reasonable sized home. And in those situations, we would expect some infiltration in the rear yard. That's what's happening here. That's what's being proposed. It's just a function of it being on a consolidated lot. And so with that, we're getting a little bit more detail in terms of how this stormwater is going to be managed. And in doing so, what the applicant and the owner have proposed is actual infrastructure, actual items to be located in the backyard to act as a spot to collect that water and have the water leave the site at a slower pace, allowing the existing water runoff from the surrounding area to happen, I'll say, at a peak or first, and then for this site to follow. With the idea and understanding that, and just as the director just mentioned, this street will see improvements in the coming years. So this is essentially a temporary measure to address things right away, but will benefit the street in the long term, which is something we would expect to see on all of the properties if they were redeveloped in this neighborhood, including the Women's Rural Resource Center that is proposing 9 new bedrooms and some office space. Just wanted to clarify and note that part as well.
Okay. Thank you. Any other, Councillor Pelkman?
Yes, thank you. So if the street is going to be redeveloped, that brings a question about the parking. If sidewalks go in, do we still have parking for 4 vehicles per driveway? Yes?
I'm happy to answer that question through the mayor. The answer is 100% yes. Any sidewalks, if they were located on this side of the street, would be on the municipal side of the lot line, and the 4 parking spaces, or 8 parking spaces in this case, are fully located on the property themselves. And in fact, that is the reason the building is set back at the distance that it is so that it can have those parking spaces fully on the property. And Mr. Dijak mentioned there was some delay in bringing this forward. This application was made in June, middle of June, June 12th, I think. And we worked through the month of June and into July to get a satisfactory result on that setback before bringing it forward to council, so that we were ensuring that parking spaces or parked cars were not overhanging the property line, overhanging a potential sidewalk in the future, or infringing on any of the municipality's ability to bring new services within the right-of-way. And in fact, I will add one piece to that. This envisions a right-of-way widening potentially in this area.
Any other questions? Councillor Pelkman.
Sorry, not a question, but a comment. I do support the neighbor's request for fencing. Just, you know, if you think about the townhomes on McKellar, you know, you've got 4 shallow patios where people have their barbecues and stuff, and I think just for the privacy of everyone involved, the people in the townhouses and the neighbors, that fencing, at least for that sight line, would be appropriate.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, before we proceed any further, I want to remind council to frame all your questions through the chair. If you have a question, direct it to a specific staff member, please. Thank you. Okay, recommendation of the public meeting to consider an application for rezoning for the property located at 130 Beach Street, Strathroy, be hereby closed. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Pelkman. All in favor? Any opposed? And none, close me. Okay, we'll now go on to the decision that the subject rezoning application ZBA 11-2023 be approved. Motion, Deputy Mayor McGuire, second by Councillor Wilsey. Any discussion or questions on the motion?
Are we putting Steve's amendment
He
to
wants
it
to
in?
make an amendment.
I don't believe that's a zoning issue. I think that's more of a site plan.
Okay, good point. Yep. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now move to public meeting number 2. The purpose of this public meeting is to consider an application for temporary rezoning at the property located at 8157 Innandale Drive, Integral Farms Incorporated. Have a motion to open the public meeting. Deputy Mayor McGuire, second by Councilor Brennan. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Mr. Williams, I believe it's you again with a report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It is me, and I have a short presentation on the application for a temporary rezoning, and this would allow for farm workers to be located on the property and live on the property for purposes of working at the greenhouses that are located on this site. So council may recognize this site as a former marijuana growing operation that is no longer occurring on the property. So this property is located on Innandale on the south side between Adelaide Road and McAvoy, and surrounding this property is primarily agricultural uses. The proposal is for 4 bunkhouses. I've got a copy of a portion of the site plan zoomed in here. There's a circle around 3 bunkhouses. The applicant is looking to have 2 of those occupied within this year, and then future years would see additional bunkhouses. You'll see 2 future ones located outside of the circle, just sort of if the circle is 1 o'clock. And one of those is being proposed at this time in the temporary rezoning. A 5th one may come to be, but they would require additional information on wells and whatnot, so timing was a factor. They would like to get things rolling and have workers in place this year so that they can move forward with planting as soon as possible. This is showing that the location of those bunkhouses being fairly close but not attached necessarily to the existing structures, and as they say, it's for farm labor. This is the overall site showing the greenhouses. It says phase 1 and phase 2. Those are existing buildings that exist there today, and these farm workers would be working in those buildings. Staff comments have been received, agency comments have been received, and those are in the report. The statutory public meeting is today, so there may be additional comments. But with that being said, there is a policy section in the report and analysis therein, and staff are recommending approval of this proposed rezoning, and the draft zoning bylaw is on council's agenda this evening as well. So I will be happy to answer any questions that may come up. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments in support of the rezoning? Seeing none, are there any comments in opposition to the rezoning? Seeing none, are there any comments and questions from members of council? Councillor Canis.
I have no concerns about this project. I guess my question's on the temporary word, Mr. Mayor. I guess wondered what that means and why it's temporary and what happens after 3 years, I guess.
Who was that question? Who's that question directed to?
I guess
Councillor Canis?
whoever feels they can answer it. So.
Yeah. Is there anyone who would want to answer that question? Tim.
Through the mayor, I'm happy to answer that question. I don't want to jump the gun and offer that I can, and so I apologize if I sound like I am anytime this evening, and I'll try to work on it. But in this particular case, why is it temporary? The existing official plan has, and also the county official plan has foreign temporary workers or seasonal workers fit into a category where it's temporary housing. The idea being that these buildings are not occupied the full year, they're not permanent structures, this sort of approach. However, we're seeing a change in this way, and in fact, the OPA 3, which is the county's official plan, recently changed that to be to not say temporary, and the OPA 14, which is the Strathroy's official plan, also looks at it slightly different. The problem is that's not approved today, so we're working on a framework that exists today. At some point, they're going to be coming back for a 5th bunkhouse, and at that time, they're going to be showing us additional servicing and other details and alike. And what I would say is that I can't tell the future, but if I were to guess based on the trajectory of today, that might be a permanent rezoning rather than a temporary. So what we had to do here is we had to work with what we had. The applicant submitted this application in July. We had to work quickly to make things happen so that they could keep their timeline running for a September, October sort of purchase and install of these housing units. So that's what we were looking at. And rather than wait for OPA 14, this was a good solution to the situation that was in front of us. That was a slightly longer answer, but I'm hoping it's okay and answers the question.
Follow-up, Councillor Canis.
Yeah, just to follow up on that. So that means when assuming the official plans get approved, does that mean the change then becomes automatic, or then there have to be a reapplication to make them permanent?
Assume that's for Mr. Williams.
Thank you. And it won't be automatic, given that they still need to show us that that 5th bunkhouse will have proper sanitary and water capacity. So at the moment, the information that they provided us shows that they can run using the wells and approvals that they have today. They have shown us that they can run the greenhouse operations and they can have up to 4 bunkhouses. So with that in mind, with that information, we're coming forward with this much. If they want to bump it to a 5th unit, that's when, or 5th unit, I mean a 5th bunkhouse with 8 people in it. That's when they would need to show us the new information, show us that it can work, and then we would come forward with the rezoning.
Thanks for that. Any other? Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Assuming that these bunkhouses, when complete, will conform to all of our building practices and provincial and federal regulations, once they're occupied and in operation, will they be subject to periodic inspection, and if so, by whom? I guess that'd be for the planner.
Yeah. Mr. Williams?
So There are two parts. One is the health unit inspects as well as the fire department. And both are necessary for the owners to receive approval for new foreign temporary workers to arrive at their farm. So that has to happen prior to those people attending the site.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, motion to close the public meeting. Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay. Now, recommendation that the application for temporary rezoning be approved. Deputy Mayor McGuire, second by Councillor Hippel. Any further questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now move to public meeting number 3. The purpose of this public meeting is to consider an application for an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment for 599 Albert Street, owner DeBoski Incorporated, agent Monteith Brown Planning Consultants. Have a motion to open the public meeting. Councillor Pelkman, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none? Carried. Again, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As noted, this is an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application. It is or on the north side of Albert Street in Strathroy. It is lands that were formerly part of the Strathmere Lodge and now are associated or deemed surplus by the county and were sold to the current owners. This is an application that the official plan sees these lands as institutional as a result of, they see them as community facilities, which is essentially the designation that allows for institutional uses, which it makes sense since it was a part of the Strathmere Lodge. Now that it isn't, the applicants have applied to have these lands redesignated to residential. That has a significant frontage along Albert, and it also is being rezoned, and that rezoning application is taking the zoning from that institutional zone to a residential R3 zone category. And they're looking for some site-specific amendments, including a reduction in the tenant parking from 1.25 to 1.05, increasing the density permitted in the R3 zone, increasing the coverage of parking spaces on the property, decreasing the setback to the county road, center line of the county road, reducing the accessible parking spaces. Those are parking spaces for those with wheelchairs and other accessible matters. They have 2 and they're proposing 3 of each. And then slightly redefining amenity space to what I would say is align it more closely to what we propose in the commercial, which means, and what I mean by that is allow for the amenity space to be both indoors as well as outdoors. So with that in mind, they are proposing a 4-story building with 85 parking spaces, 85 apartment dwelling units, and as I mentioned, 102 parking spaces for the tenants, meeting all of the requirements for the number of parking spaces for visitors. And there will be 38 2-bedrooms, 41 1-bedrooms, and 6 bachelors. This is the overall site in total. You can see Albert Street on the bottom, and the driveway access to Strathmere Lodge on the left-hand side, and there's an access point onto there. So meaning there would be an in off of Albert and an out an in and out off of Albert and an in and out off of the existing driveway to Strathroy Lodge, providing sort of two different options for people to come and go from the site. There are a number of staff comments, agency comments, and tonight is the statutory public meeting to hear others. And included in the report is information about policy, and the details are around what's applicable to the site. And in terms of next steps, staff will take back comments that are received tonight. If there are changes made or responses necessary, those would be sought, and then an evaluation report would accompany this item when it comes back to council for a decision. It's important to note that the official plan amendment would receive an adoption by local council, Strathroy-Caradoc Council, but it is a county council approval that would be coming if it were to go that direction. So those are my comments. I'm happy to answer any questions that may come up, and thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Williams. Are there any comments in support of the proposed rezoning? Is there someone there who wants to speak in favor?
Good evening, Your Worship. Jay McGuffin, Monteith Brown Planning Consultants, Vice President and Principal Planner for Monteith Brown. Present this evening on behalf of the owners, Dabaski Inc. And joining me here is Eric Steele. Eric is the primary planner on the file. I'll invite Eric to make a brief submission, and then both Eric and I will be available to respond to any comments of council or the public.
Thank you. First, I'd like to start by thanking staff for the presentation. I just have to make some highlights, some additional elements of proposal for council. Staff's report notes municipalities' current housing affordability challenges, as well as makes note of for infill development to require more sensitivity or consideration to adjacent land uses through matters such as landscaping, buffering, and parking. I note that the proposed 85-unit residential building would contribute towards a greater range of housing mix and choice in the area, as well as support the provision of more attainable housing in the community. The site has been designed to orientate the building to the southwest corner of the property, closer to Albert Street and the laneway to Strathroy Lodge, allowing for the building to be located approximately 28 meters or 92 feet from the eastern property line and the adjacent residential uses to the east, as well as 26 meters or 85 feet from the county-owned lands connecting Strathroy Lodge to the north. The proposed building would be approximately 14 meters in height, or 46 feet, and it's supposed to be designed with a flat roof. And to provide a bit of context, we note that there are two 3.5-story residential apartment buildings, some peak roofs that are located to the south across Albert Street from the property. Parking would be provided along the east and north side of the site to provide building separation, and as well as more aesthetic and activated streetscape along Albert Street. In response to comments raised in pre-consultation by county staff regarding potential visual impact of the parking areas on the county-owned lands containing Strathroy Lodge to the north, our client is proposing to construct a low landscape berm on the county lands just north of the property that would screen the parking area from view, as well as provide more naturalized view enjoyment for future residents of the proposed building, as well as the residents of Strathroy Lodge. Additional landscaping will also be proposed on the east side of the property to screen those areas or parking areas from those neighboring residential properties. Now, walkways will also be proposed on site that would provide connection to entrances to the buildings with the existing parking area, or the proposed parking areas and the existing sidewalks on Albert Street to facilitate pedestrian movement on site. I would just like to note one of the barriers to providing more attainable housing in communities is the provision of increased rates of parking. And our proposal, or our client's proposal, is proposing to reduce parking, as Tim noted, from 1.25 spaces per unit to 1.05 spaces per unit. As previously mentioned, there will be opportunities for landscaping to provide on site that would screen these parking areas from view and reduce any kind of impact on adjacent properties. And that concludes my overview of the proposal. As Jay mentioned, both he and I are here to answer any questions from members of council.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions or comments in opposition to the proposed rezoning? Okay. Seeing none, are there any comments or questions from members of council? Councillor Kent.
Well, just a comment, it's great to see a project like this again. I just hope that one of them gets built soon. That's
Fair enough. Councillor Peltman.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. One of the things that I really liked about this proposal was, you know, I'm trying to look 20 years into the future, and at some point in time, we're gonna have to put in a municipal transit system. And what I see here is a clustering of apartment buildings, which is gonna help make a transit system more viable. And when you look at those buildings and then head down Salisbury and Dominion, there's a good chunk of rental properties there that would, you know, for one bus route would probably make a viable bus route.
Any other comments by members of council? Councillor Wilsey.
To the chair, to the planner, or anyone else, I'm just looking at the lot area. I see that based on per unit, we're less than half the required lot area. So it seems like there's maybe more units on here than would typically be allowed by more than actually more than double, just because it's 60 meters per unit instead of 130. And I'm also looking at the number of parking spaces for the tenant, and I see that there's less parking spaces than there are bedrooms in the unit, with the number of units being 2-bedroom. I'm thinking a lot of them may have multiple vehicles. I'm just wondering where the overflow from this parking lot is going to go if it's not going to be in the parking lot.
Mr. Williams, did you want to take a crack at that?
Sure, and I think one of the first comment was about the density, and I think that really is reflective of the age of this particular zoning bylaw provision. In other areas of the municipality, we have greater densities. In secondary plan in North Meadows, for example, would have greater densities than what's proposed here. That sort of high density residential goes from 75 units per hectare up to 150. This would be right in the middle of that. So yes, it is higher than the R3 standard today, but I think this is something that as a municipality we're going to have to continue to see and work on. Because there are other sites that have also bumped up against this 78 units per hectare number in the R3 zone, and we have seen increases to it. I can think of Darcy Drive right off the top of my head. I can also think of some properties on 2nd Street, which are in that North Meadow secondary plan, which is, I think, probably the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. The other item that you brought up is the number of parking spaces related to bedrooms. And the applicant can speak to their justification to the parking. I don't want to overstep in that regard, but I think what they're looking at when they have put forward this proposal is that those second bedrooms are going to be occupied by potentially younger people, children, things of that nature, and rather than 2 adults in 2 different bedrooms having 2 different vehicles or alike. And they have noted in their justification things like this is within a reasonable walking distance of the downtown area and a reasonable bike distance from many of the industrial buildings further east. And they in fact are proposing some bicycle parking on this property in light of that. So I think that that's the first answer to it, but we can certainly take that back and continue to investigate it for sure.
Any other questions or follow-up? And I have one, and I'm going to thank Councillor Wilsey for that question regarding parking, because I've received numerous calls from neighbors of multi-unit houses, duplexes, concerned about parking. So I think that is a valid concern. But I have a question for Eric, and through myself to you. You raised the term attainable, and I just wonder if you could explain that a little further. What did you mean by attainable, and how would you achieve that?
Mr. Mayor, so attainable housing is often used to distinguish from affordable housing, which typically has sort of calculation or a specific rate attached to that definition, whereas attainable housing provides, it would not meet the definition of affordable, which is often considered 30% of a person's income that's contributed towards rent, but attainable that is more affordable than existing options that may be present in the community.
So just to follow up, and then I'll let it go, is your plan to have units that are either affordable or attainable as part of this proposal? I know we're down the road, but is it part of the plan to have some sort of attainable or affordable housing?
To Mr. Mayor, there's no plans this time to incorporate affordable housing units as part of the proposal at this time. However, the proposal to increase the density of the site, provide the 85 units, as well as providing residential apartment buildings, would provide an opportunity for more attainable housing, as it would provide more diversity of housing forms in the community compared to sort of existing single detached or lower density forms. And these higher density units are typically more affordable or more attainable than ownership of a single detached unit.
Got it. Thank you for that. I understood what you're saying. Any other questions? Seeing none, I have a motion to close the public meeting. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Hippel. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. We'll go to the recommendation, the subject report BBP-2023-90 for OPA 2-2023 and ZBA 4-2023 be received for information. Somebody carry the motion. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Pammer. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Go to approval of minutes. We have 2 minutes in front of us for approval. The regular council minutes of July 17th and the special council meeting minutes of July 26th. And someone will make a motion to accept the minutes. Councillor Pammer, second by, need a second here, Deputy Mayor McGuire. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. We'll now move to item 4, drainage matters 4.1, Salisbury West Drain 2022 addendum report, meeting to consider the engineer's report. For recommendation that council adopt the engineer's report for the Salisbury West Drain 2022 addendum report and give first, second reading provisional bylaw number 59-23 for the project. Someone to bring the motion? Councillor Brennan, second by Deputy Mayor McGuire. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to communications. There are 4 in front of us, and I do know that we want to pull some tonight. I know there will be some discussion. Who would like to pull one of the communications for discussion? Deputy Mayor McGuire.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to pull 5.1 financial service report. My question specifically involves the audit section.
Wait,
yeah, thank you.
We'll get to that. We'll get to the questions.
Thank you.
Any other communications? Anyone? Councillor Canis.
5.2, please.
Okay. Anybody wishes to pull? I'm gonna ask myself if we pull item 5.4. So that leaves item 5.3. Have a motion to accept item 5.3. Councillor Peltman, seconder, Councillor Pammer, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 5.1, we'll do the motion first, Deputy Mayor. A recommendation that council receive for information the final report to council from BDO Canada LLP regarding the December 31st, 2022 financial statement audit. Motion to receive the report. Councillor Kennis, seconded by Councillor Brennan. Questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I guess it would be to the Director of Finance. I'm not familiar, so I'm just looking for a definition of, I guess I should reference the report. I'm looking at the audited report, the second one that comes up, and on page, well, put it this way, it's the first page following your signatory page where Ms. Lasky and yourself have signed. When I run through it, I'm on page 33 of 37, I believe. So anyways, it says summary of unadjusted misstatements. So I'm just curious, what does the term misstatement mean? And then in that box that we see there, I'll go identified misstatements, which would be the second column. I see three numbers, 60,755, 9,451, and 70,206. Are you able to provide me with just insight as to what is the misstatement and what essentially am I looking at? Thank you.
Through the chair to the deputy mayor. So misstatements are basically because the municipality makes our statements, we present those statements to the auditor then audits those statements. So as part of their review, they look at the validity, there's testing and all that that's done to make sure those numbers jive. So in their testing, there was 3 items that came up in their testing that surfaced, and those 3 are listed. First was the accrued interest on long-term debt. So that really is the accrued interest on the long-term debt. It's based on the term of the outstanding loans, so loans that we have. So BDO calculated the accrued interest to be $35,900 compared to what we showed, which was 96. So we were actually showing more interest outstanding than they did. So that's what that adjustment, the 60,755 is. So they're adjusting that down. So it's showing that we have actually less accrued interest than we were showing. The second one is a settlement not recorded. So that is a litigation matter that the municipality received some insurance money for, but because that is still under litigation, we are required to sit on that money until the litigation is through. So that is that estimate for the $250,000. So that's insurance money that the municipality received in regards to litigation, but the litigation hasn't closed yet. So we showed it as income, and they wanted to show it as expense, but because we haven't expensed it yet, we chose not to expense it. So they have to put through an adjustment showing that to balance those things out. And the last one was an error in sampling population. So what they do is they sample different items, and this one is in regards to our accumulated amortization of our assets. So BDO tested approximately 35 of our different assets that we have, calculating how much amortization was done, and they found an error of about $9,451 is what they're showing on theirs. So based on that, they did then the sampling of sort of applied the total amount then that really should be adjusted totally globally on all of our assets, and you'll see that is the 315,969. So how does that sort of jive with our financial statements? Because we've approved our financial statements. There's a materiality limit that they have, which is 600,000. And obviously, once all this is done and calculated, we're well under the 600,000. So therefore, they just report them as misstatements. Obviously, a lot of those get caught up in the next round of our audit, so that's what that is.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Councillor Derbyshire.
I guess the only one question I had is, how come this wasn't done before we approved the financial statements? Like, why? It seems like this should be a step in that process, as opposed to afterwards. Now we're gonna make up for it next year and kind of move forward that way, right? Maybe I'm wrong, I could be wrong.
Through the chair to Councillor Derbyshire. So these are really, they don't affect the statements as they were received and approved by council. So there is no monetary, so one of them, like even when you look at the amortization, that is a non-cash item. So it really doesn't affect anything to do with cash. The other two are an accruement to your long-term debt, interest. So again, really we haven't incurred those yet. So it's yet to be paid for. The 250,000 is, again, same thing. Those haven't been incurred yet either. So really, those adjustments are to come anyways, all three of the ones that they've highlighted. So there is really no necessary adjustment for that. And this report comes after they present their statements. So in the order in which the reports come through an audit, this is done after the audited statements are received, and allows then you as the governing body to understand their impartiality. Also, any information that we've provided to them sort of lays out the roadmap for the audit, and that is the final piece, is this report.
Any follow-up, Councillor Derbyshire?
Yeah, I do understand. I guess just last time they gave a pretty good presentation and went on about how they had gone over everything with a fine-tooth comb and sat down in our offices, and this was the best report we'd ever done, and blah, blah, blah. We approve it, and now we're here with these. Like, it feels weird to me, but maybe this is how municipal finances go. I would think when I do mine, if somebody came up with this, we would have to correct something somewhere along the way, because my statements wouldn't be correct to the government.
So through the chair to Councillor Derbyshire. So every year we get this misstatement report as part of our audit. This is nothing new. In fact, I would say these numbers are better than they've been in several years, based on different things, because of just the application of the different items that have come up through the audit. There are items as we're going through the audit with them that we do make adjustments on, if they're brought to our attention, as they do, but these were three that were brought to our attention, and we decided not to make those adjustments to the statements because of the nature of those adjustments, because they will be caught in future statements.
Any, Councillor Wilsey?
Two questions. Through the chair to Director of Finance. Is there a list coming through of the issues that they did find that we did correct, that the audit found that I think might be interesting? The other part is when I'm looking through the same page that the other councillors have been talking about, there's a blank box on the bottom that says the details of why no adjustment has been made to these financial statements for the items above. You gave a good description of that tonight. But anyone who's looking at this and doesn't have your verbal description to go with this might look and see that we have $600,000 of misstatements on our finances and not be pleased about that or raise questions. In the interest of clarity, should we not be putting the details of what all these misstatements are on the box that says what these misstatements are on this form?
So because this, through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, because this is the auditor's report, that would be their box to fill in, not ours. So we would suggest, we would provide those discussions which I've just had with you, those same discussions take place with the auditor. So it's up to the auditor to fill in this is his report, not our report. So we wouldn't fill those in necessarily, and that's something I can bring to their attention if it's helpful to council. That they would like that filled in, council would like this filled in on the report, and we can certainly do that. Again, if you look at the nature of the misstatements, and that term is somewhat misleading because it's not like we're, I would say, just arbitrarily making misstatements. These are things that as they review, that they've come across and just differences in the way that things were applied. So that would be my explanation for those. As far as the items that were adjusted, I can certainly look into that and get a list of those. Typically, those would have already been incorporated in those statements. So I will speak to the auditors and see if they do keep a running total on those. Probably the easiest way for us is just to look at the iterations of our audit statements that we do with them. I think there was 2. So as I recall, we did the initial one. There was one that was brought back to us. We changed it, and then what you ended up with was the 3rd set. So there was 2 iterations of those statements beyond the natural one. So I can get that information if that's something council wishes.
I guess we don't need that, but most people aren't going to want to go through the details of those statements, but it would just be something to just take a record and see how we do from year to year. Maybe we can get better on the misstatements and the corrections we have to make on the audit going forward.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll have a motion that council receive from me. Motions are part of the floor. We have the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Councillor Kennis, you wanted to speak to 5.2, the Q2 building permits.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I guess the question would be to the Director of Building and Planning. It's, you know, the numbers certainly for the first 2 quarters are down from the previous years. Yet, you know, we had a number of public meetings and a number of projects approved over the last couple of years. Just wondering, should we expect to see the numbers start to increase, the number of permits start to increase in the second half of the year? Or is, you know, until interest rates come down or whatever the case might be to make some of these projects come to fruition?
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Kennis. I think municipalities across the board are generally seeing a decline in number of permits for the first and the second quarter. I think you did hit the nail on the head, saying that many developers seem to be waiting for market conditions for interest rates to pause. Even just a pause, I think, would spur a lot of development. We've recently been going through our numbers and how many approved lots we have in the queue, and it's substantial. We have, I would say, almost 400 apartment units pretty much in the queue. And so that's huge. We just need the market conditions to come on board just a little, and I think then the numbers will certainly change. And then for dwelling units, we do continue to see strong growth in both, especially the industrial sector of the municipality. And so maybe the permit numbers might be down, but I think you'll see construction values still healthy, even though I know they look a little short this first and second quarter. I think they're going to rebound by the end of the year.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll go on to the one that I wanted to pull, and then we'll approve both of them together. Item 5.4, the Board of Health update. I shared with everyone the article from the London Free Press decrying the lack yet of funding for the new senior dental center at the shops on the Sydenham. And when you read the minutes overall, there is a worrisome trend about the funding from the provincial government regarding health care, but I did want to point out the lack of funding thus far for the the senior dental care center. I'm sure it'll get taken care of, I just wanted to pull that one. So now can we have a motion to accept item 5.2 and 5.4? Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Hippel. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Go to reports from departments. 6, financial services, section 357, application. We have 2 motions. We can do them both together. That the report, finance 2023-30 be received for information, that the applications be approved for processing. Someone to carry a motion. Councillor Kennis, second by Deputy Mayor McGuire. Any questions or comments? Councillor Kennis.
To clarify this, so Catalent, I hope I pronounced that correctly, they've applied for relief under section 357, and they can do that because I assume a portion of the building wasn't actively being used, it was being renovated, so they weren't generating revenue in that part of the building while they were doing renovations. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Kennis, yes, that's correct. Anytime, so 357 is used for several things. So if you lose your house during a fire, you can apply to have your tax reduced to what the value of the home is until it's inhabitable again. Or typically in these cases, it's loss of income because of renovations. And we have a policy that you can see has been applied here that is standard throughout the province as municipalities look at these things. So there's going to be more coming forward. I know there's a couple that we've just received recently, but yeah, they're very standard. It's just loss of income, and because of that loss of income, they're looking for a tax reduction.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now move to item 6.12, the multi-year budget. There are 3 recommendations. I think we should break them into 3. First, the council received report finance 2023-32 for information. We have a motion to receive the report. Councillor Kennis, seconder. Councillor Brennan, any questions? Seeing none, vote to receive the report. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. The second motion, the council recommends administration develop recommendations for the draft 2024-2027 multi-year operating budget that gives council a starting position of a tax impact at or below the estimated rate of annual inflation that continues to replenish and build reserve funds. Motion to carry. Motion, Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Pelkman. Any questions? Councillor Wilsey.
Just looking at that and reading that, it looks like that only says operating and to build reserve funds. I don't see anything in there with capital or capital spending. I don't think we should be doing a multi-year budget when we're looking just at the operating budget to keep it underneath inflation. Because if we're doing that, then we'll leave no money for capital. And we already have a big capital deficit. We need to be able to include both of those. So I don't believe we should focus just on operating. We need to do it all together. Or we need to revisit the whole process.
You can bring a motion to amend if you wish, Councillor Wilsey.
I will bring a motion to amend this to include capital spending at or above the rate that we spent at in 2023.
Okay, you bring a motion. Someone to second Councillor Wilsey's motion. Councillor Derbyshire, so we're just going to vote on his amendment. Those in favor of his amendment? Any opposed? Carried. So now, any other questions regarding the amendment and the overall motion? Councillor Derbyshire.
So not too sure if this is where it falls in, but the strategic plan alignment, which is what we're kind of basing going to base this off. I believe we should set this aside until the strategic plan is actually this council's, not previous or whatever. We haven't reviewed the strategic plan since, I think it was 2020 it was put in motion. So maybe maybe our strategic financial plan changed in this course of action. So maybe that's not the right plan we want to be.
Did you have, can you frame it as a question, Councilor Derbyshire?
I guess my question would be, should we be analyzing the strategic plan before we ask for them to do a multi-year budget policy?
So I had that discussion today with Director Dakin, so I'll have Director Dakin, if you want to comment on that.
So thank you. Through the chair to Councilor Derbyshire. So as far as the current strategic plan that we have, obviously the lion's share of those items have been completed. We're still following that currently. We are going out with one more meeting to sort of go to selecting the new author of the strategic plan for the next, this term of council. So that will be coming probably at, I would suspect, a September meeting. That person or that company would be coming forward at that meeting to be selected. So once they get going, I would see probably at best seeing that strategic plan in front of council March of next year. Therefore, I would say that based on that, you would have the ability to, at that stage, revisit any decisions as far as budget goes with the new strategic plan. But I would caution council in sort of putting off the budget process until that, simply because we'll be back to square one where we were this year, approving a budget halfway through the year. And at that, a multi-year budget. So I think it would be prudent to get the ball rolling with the budget process, get the budget going. Chances are you're going to be seeing that actually, as it was outlined in the report, the budget for 2024, well, the multi-year budget would come forward in December of this year. Give you the ability to, obviously, you could revisit the multi-year facets of the 25, 26, 27 with the strategic plan, but also the 24 for that matter. After the strategic plan is accepted in March, we're still only a quarter into the year in which we could make adjustments if we needed to. So that would be my advice, but again, this is council's decision.
Any other, yep, Councilor Derbyshire.
Sorry, excuse me, through you to Finance Director. I believed I read in here that if we adopt this policy, we're only actually allowed to readjust it, is it every other year? The multi-year budget, I thought it said in here somewhere that we could reevaluate. 2, 3, and 4. Is it 2, 3, and 4? Yeah. Okay. So every year it can be reevaluated. Yeah. Every year we can redo it. Yeah. Okay. I still, in my honest opinion, I don't think there's any, it's good to talk about, but if we're just gonna base it off of what we've already been doing, then we're gonna be doing the same thing. We'll be 3/4 of the way through our term before we actually get this multi-year budget to where it's what we want. We'll be into another council. So, in my opinion, you can't change it now, but we should have started this or the strategic planning probably when we got in.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, and I'll try to read the, you want to read it back, Deputy Clerk? The motion with the amendments?
Yeah, well, it's, I have a bit of a chicken scratch here, but, so that was, council recommends, that was the second one, correct?
Yes.
Councilor Lizzie? Yeah, council recommends administration development recommendations for the draft 2024-2027 multi-year operating budget that give council a starting position of a tax impact at or below the estimated rate of inflation. that continues to replenish and build reserves and includes capital spending at or above 2023, you said? Yes. And build reserve fund. Did I get all that?
Yes.
Okay, and that was moved and seconded?
Yes. We have the motion, all in favor? Oh, yes, sorry, go ahead.
The only comment is I said after, at or above 2023 levels.
Levels.
Just the one word with this. Those
Okay.
that it was good.
Okay.
That's fine.
Was that a question, Councillor Kenneth? or
No,
you
I was
jumped
just
on the
voting,
vote?
I was just voting yes, so.
All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Carried. Item 3 of the motions, that the schedule of finance committee meetings be accepted. Motion to accept, Councillor Kenneth, second by Councillor Brennan. Questions? Councillor Wilsey.
Looking back at our, to the chair, to anyone who would care to answer this, looking back at our previous budget meeting that we did, that we just wrapped up a couple months ago, we were doing 3 meetings a week for close to 3 months. And then we kept going meetings, and it took 5 months to walk through this. What's being proposed here is 3 meetings that are jammed up against when we're going to be doing our 2024 budget. So they're not starting for till October. So they're not gonna start for 2 months, and then we only have 3 of them. And based on our last one, it had to be 20 or 30 meetings. How can we jam all of that into 3 meetings? And how much, and if we can do that, why did it take so many meetings earlier in the year?
Question to
whoever wants to, and I'm not sure who that should go to, probably the Director of Finance.
Director of Finance, yeah.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilsey. So I would suggest that this year was an anomaly. Typically, we have 3 meetings for a budget. 1 on capital, 1 on operating, and then 1 putting the 2 together to come to a number. This year, to be honest, I think there was a huge education loop on just what the budget, a municipal budget looks like with 5 new members walking through that, and I think that was well spent time, because I think it set the table for where we're headed. So that's why I think the huge discrepancy, I would say, that you're seeing in the number of meetings. We're now you've provided direction tonight as to what level you want that increase to be. So I think clearly that number will be a lot more laser focused than when we started the 2023 budget. We started basically with a blank slate and kept working until we got down to where council provided a number, and then we came back with that number. So I think it's doable. We've been doing it that way, but if council wants more meetings, obviously, again, we proceed at the pace of council. So I think this is more or less setting the table so we know that there's at least 3 meetings coming up. If we find that we need more, then we do more. But in the past, that's the way it's been. It's been 3 meetings, 1 for capital, 1 for operation, and then 1 putting the 2 together.
Councillor Wilsey, follow up?
As a follow-up, this is our first multi-year budget book, correct? And I realize there's a bunch of projects. We have fire halls, we have arenas. There's a lot of projects that we may or may not be able to include with this capital spending. It just seems like a lot if we go to the schedule that you set out, where we have 1 meeting for capital, and we want to talk about arenas and fire halls and roads and sewers and everything else, just in 1 meeting for what we're going to do for the next 4 years. I don't think that's reasonable. There's way too much material for that. I would suggest, if council is amenable to it, that we start discussing at least what we want to do with capital projects and where we want to look at and what budget we have for them. Probably late September and go forward from there, just so we have an idea when we get to October of what we want to do.
And when we get there, do you want to make a motion to that effect, Councillor Wilsey, to make an amendment?
I'll wait till I see other comments. Just put a few other hands went up.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with Deputy Mayor McGuire, then with Councillor Pelfrey.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I put the question out to my fellow councillors that by the time we enter into this discussion, there will be a new, very important person sitting with us, the CAO. And so I'm going to make a motion that we defer selecting our dates until such time as that person is here, solely to ensure that this fits with the CAO's schedule, because I think it's important to have that person here, but also it would fit with how the CAO sees her staff being utilized for this purpose. And I simply don't know what that person would have planned.
So did you bring a motion, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, I did.
Seconder, Deputy Mayor McGuire's motion to defer.
When?
Oh, pardon me, deferral requires a date. The September 8th, I believe, is our meeting, our first meeting that the CAO will be at. I'm sorry?
September
5th, thank you, September 5th.
So, seconder, Deputy Mayor, sorry, your promotion, Mr. Derbyshire, Councillor Derbyshire. Any discussion or questions on Deputy Mayor's, Councillor Kennis?
I think we're making too big a deal out of this. I think we're just putting some dates in the calendar and you know, penciling some dates in to start discussion on the budget. And I think that we're, you know, we can have a whole lot more meetings in September, October, and November, and December if we want, but I think staff is just trying to put some dates in the calendar so we can get started on something. And I don't think that we should make it into a bigger deal than it is at this point, so.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Derbyshire.
I just want to express my concern with, there's 5 new council members. So in the past, it's taken you 3-day meetings. I get it. You guys were here for 12 years, the same people. You knew what was going on. We have 5 new people. We're also doing a multi-year budget. I do believe this is going to require some more meetings. And I hate to say that, and I'm sorry to the old council that we're just not getting it as quick as we should. But I think we probably feel like we need more information when we sit down to set this up. So I do agree with Deputy Mayor. I think, you know, the CAO should be part of it, but I also think 3 meetings aren't gonna cut it, and we're gonna end up into January, February. People are gonna be mad and thinking we should have started in September.
Yeah. We'll go to Councillor Pelkman, then Councillor Brennan. Councillor Pelkman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to have a good political answer, and I'm going to agree with everyone so far. So I would agree with Councillor Kennis that you know, we're just trying to pencil some dates in so we can get started. I would agree with Councillor Wilsey and Councillor Derbyshire that, in the words of Donald Trump legal team, that those dates are aspirational, that we could get done in those few meetings. I think it's going to take more. However, on the other hand, I think in some ways it might be easier because we're not saying no to a lot of projects. We're pegging them in order. Whereas when we do it year by year, you have to say no. So maybe it might make some of those issues a little quicker. I also agree, though, that, you know, with the CAO present, you know, she needs to first sit down and get to know her team and where the municipality's needs are. But I think she'll do that quicker than she's probably already started, is my guess. Yeah. So, you know, I think ultimately I agree with Councillor Kennis that, you know, we're pegging dates in the calendar so we can get started. You know, staff can get started with the operational budgets fairly easily because most of them are you know, pegged on history of what's happened in the past. It's really the capital where the nuts and bolts are going to get the nitty-gritty discussion, and that's probably not going to happen until a little later in the fall when the CAO is here to provide lots of guidance.
Councillor Brennan, did you still have a comment or a question?
Well, I guess my comment would be that I think that this year we'll probably get the budget done in fewer meetings than we did last year. But we can start by penciling in 3, and it's going to be pretty clear as we go through it that maybe 3 won't be enough. But at least staff will have had the opportunity to get things ready for us earlier. And maybe it takes 7 meetings, maybe it takes 6, but that's going to become very clear. But as far as penciling in some dates now, I think that's wise, just so we can give the signal to staff that they need to get started on these things, and that they've got them well in hand, and they've got some momentum going even before the new CAO is in place, so that individual will be able to get an overview of what's coming down the road.
Thank you. Any other, Councillor Hippel, then we'll go to Deputy Mayor, then we should have the vote.
Thank you, through yourself. I was just sitting here thinking, obviously our staff know that this is what we're thinking, because we're sitting here saying this is what we're looking at, and we're looking at the dates. But weird question, I suppose. Why do we have to have it in? Why do we even have to have a motion of dates? Like, I guess what I'm saying is I agree with Deputy Mayor, because I mean, obviously staff knows that we're looking at it. We're going to be looking at a multi-year budget. But I mean, do we even have to pencil anything in until she gets here? Like, they know that we're talking about it. So for me, it doesn't, I mean, we're talking about this and we're only talking about 3 dates, and this is a longer conversation than we've had with most other things tonight. So, yeah, it's taking too long on something very simple.
Yeah. On that note, are there any other comments or questions? One more, Councillor Wilsey.
Just to follow up on the first one, if Deputy Mayor and I believe Councillor Derbyshire would withdraw their motion, if they're interested in this, I would propose that we just move the first meeting of the budget process to discuss capital projects to later in September, and we don't need to defer. That should give the CIO enough time to catch up and staff time to get working on things, and then that will give us a project where we can actually get 6 to 7 meetings done and still get the 2024 budget done for early 2024, so we don't run into the same issue where our capital is 6 months below. But that is on the basis of the mayor and that motion being withdrawn.
Deputy Mayor.
I will be withdrawing my motion. I agree, actually, with Councillor Kennis. We are saying the exact same things, just coming at it from 2 completely different viewpoints. So I withdraw my motion, if the seconder will withdraw.
Councillor Derbyshire.
I'd like to say yeah, but I kind of agree with Wilsey. I'd like to set some September. Like, I don't think we're gonna get done, and it's gonna be a shit show. December is busy, so I'll withdraw because Mike withdrew. But this is
Reminder, Councillor Derbyshire, the language. Thank you.
Well,
sir.
It'll be a blank show.
Councillor Kennis, we need to wrap this up.
So why don't we just, if you know, we want to start, I think September 25th is a Monday, the 4th Monday of the month. There's no council meeting. Like, if we want to add that to the list as a starting date to look at capital, then why don't we just add that and, you know, put them in our calendars.
Your Monday's open.
Let's do that. We have to move on. Councillor Wilsey.
I was just going to second that.
Okay, we second it. So we have a motion. Can you help me with this?
Poor Ted.
So we added, let's just say that the schedule of finance committee meetings be accepted with the addition of September, is it 25th? 25th? Okay. All in favor? Carried. And spoke like a true politician, Councillor Wilsey, so I'm not sure he's compromised. That's good. Move to item 6.13, Caradoc Housing Corporation loan. Recommendation that council receive report FIN 2023-33 for information and file. Someone to bring the motion. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Pammer. Any questions or comments? Councillor Hippel.
Thank you. Through yourself to possibly yourself. I'm not actually sure who this would go to, but seeing that we were denied by county council, and I think we were all really hoping that that was going to go through, and now that we're looking at an agreement between the municipality and CHC, do we have a backup plan for that if that doesn't work out?
I'll comment on the county one, just the language denied. They actually changed the program itself, so it was denied based on the change in the program. But on the CHC thing, I'm going to ask Director Dakin to help there, because I'm not sure like it's a loan through the municipality. We're loaning the money, correct? Right? We're loaning the money, so all we've asked the consultant, and I apologize, Councilor Pemmer, is to help with the terms and conditions of that loan.
Okay, yeah, oh, all right, so, but this wasn't something that we did before, so instead of the Middlesex County loaning the money, now the municipality is going to put the money out.
Yes.
Instead of.
And I apologize, Councilor Pammer is the new president of Caradoc Housing, so I should allow her to answer the question, but I apologize.
No, I don't think there's anything, a stat, we'll be looking at, we have the loan from the municipality for 1.1, which we thought was going to be temporary based on the county giving us the loan. But as the chair has commented, the county changed the program requirements, so we no longer fit that mandate. So now we need to pay back the municipality the loan that was given to us. So we'll be coming forth with terms and payments of repaying that loan to the municipality in hopefully the next month. Okay.
Any other questions? Councilor Derbyshire.
Well, we hired a consultant to figure this out for us?
Yep.
Or is this already, do they already do this for us?
Sorry, I'll allow Director Dakin to answer that.
Through the chair to Councilor Derbyshire. So Devonshire Consulting's been working with us on the project already through CHC. So we're just working with them to put together, they do this all the time. So it's just adding.
But it's not costing us any more money?
No,
okay,
nothing.
perfect, because there's no sense spending money between us.
No, we're not spending money. I could use ChatGPT to come up with a.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we have a motion in front of you. The council will receive report Finance 2023-33 for information and file. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. We'll now move to item 6.1.4. Excuse me, the sewer non-connect. We have a recommendation that council have the fee credited and waived for the sewer non-connect fee until January 1st, 2024 for those residents at Mount Bridges on Adelaide Road, Queen Street, and Lions Park Drive that are part of the current private drain connection. PDC intake for the $17,500 and have been charged. Someone to bring the motion. Councilor Brennan, second by Councilor Pelkman. Any questions or comments? Councilor Wilsey.
Has everyone who's on those streets, have they all been charged? Or is it only the ones who called in to agree to pay? I just want to make sure we're talking about the rate.
Again, who's the question to? Councilor?
I don't know.
Yes, it would be Councilor. Go to Director Dakin.
Through the chair to Councilor Wilsey. So the way the bylaw reads is as soon as the pipe goes past your property, you're charged. Because, and pardon the pun, the water got muddied with the 17.5, people thought that until they decide to pay their 17.5, they shouldn't be charged. But those are two separate issues. So what we're doing really is just sort of clarifying that. The bylaw that has been in place for 10 plus years states that as soon as the pipe goes past your property, you're charged or until you connect. And then we've now introduced this 17.5, which kind of got things messed up. So we've been dealing with a lot of residents saying, well, why are you charging me when you didn't give me the ability to hook up? There's some credence to the fact that we didn't give them the ability to hook up, but the fact of the matter was the pipe was in front of them. They also didn't choose to hook up or not hook up. So I think just to clarify this, we're talking 22 residents. We just cleaned this one up with this round, And then any documentation going forward, it's now clear that as soon as that pipe's in the ground, you're gonna be charged the non-connect fee until you connect. And the 17.5 is once we start that project. And those projects are typically, that information is conveyed to the ratepayers probably 2 to 3 years in advance of the pipe even coming down their street. So I think this is sort of the last cleanup of the current 17.5 piece in Mount Bridges.
Any other questions? Councillor Derbyshire.
Actually, I'm gonna probably amend the motion. I would like to see the 17.5 move to the same date so that we can clear up the muddy water as we so talk about. Because right now it is September 5th, I believe, that they have to decide whether they're gonna pay or not, or whatever the thing is. But I do believe there's a few kind of outstanding parts to this that maybe should be looked into and definitely clarified before we make them hammer down on this thing here. So I would motion that not only the non-connect fee be moved to January 1st, but the 17.5 be moved to that date as well, so that we can.
Okay, so we have a motion, I have a seconder for Councillor Derbyshire's. Pardon me? Sorry, I can't hear you, Councillor. It's just an amendment, right?
There's already an motion on the floor. Is this an amendment?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're going to debate the amendment. So, second by Councillor Hippel. Any questions regarding the amendment? Councillor Pammer.
Through the chair to Director Dakin, what impact would that amendment have on the municipality?
Basically, through the chair to Councillor Pammer, the effect on the municipality would be, instead of getting the notices back from the residents involved on September, we get them back January 1. So really there's no financial, in fact, there's no, anyone who's having it put on their taxes, it's not gonna go on their taxes till 2024 anyways. So February was when they get added to the taxes. So anyone that's putting it, the only people that it would really affect is anyone that is paying us up front, the 17.5. So anyone that's choosing to pay the 17.5 up front or going out and getting their own financing would be affected.
Any other questions? Okay, so we'll ask for a vote on Councillor Derbyshire's amendment that the intake for the 17.5 be deferred until January 1st, 2024. All in favor?
Can I just
Yep,
get,
sorry, yep.
sorry, can I get that recorded?
Recorded vote?
Yeah.
Sure. Yep, Councillor Brennan.
Just a point of order. On amendment to a motion, do you ask the mover and the seconder if they accept the amendment? Rather than vote on it?
Yeah, so Councillor Brennan was the mover and the seconder was
Right.
Councillor Pelkman.
On, right.
Councillor Derbyshire requested an amendment, which then
Okay.
the easiest way to do it is through a friendly amendment in asking the mover and seconder if they agree with that amendment.
Right, and if there's not a friendly amendment, then we could do a vote, correct? That's right, that's the thought. So do you want a friendly amendment, Councillor Derbyshire? And ask, you accept it?
Sure. Whatever the
Yep.
rules are.
Given the request for friendly amendment and given the answer provided by the finance director, I accept the friendly amendment.
And the seconder was Councillor Pelkman, I believe. You accept the friendly amendment?
Is this what Bo feels like all the time? Yes, I accept the friendly
Thank you.
amendment.
And thank you for the lesson once again.
Now we
Councillor
don't
Brennan.
vote?
So it's a friendly amendment.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And now we vote on the,
Now we vote on the main motion, so.
So now that is the motion.
Yep.
it's in.
Okay.
It's in there. Okay, so I'll read back the motion. Council have the fee credited and waived for the sewer non-connect fee till January 1st, 2024 for those residents in Mount Bridges and Adelaide Road, Queen Street and Lions Park Drive that are part of the current private drain connection, that the intake for the 17,500 be deferred to January 1st, 2024 also. We already had the motion, the seconder. Just take a vote. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now move to building and planning, 6.2, the mid-year 2023 BBP update. So a motion to receive the report. Councillor Pammer, second by Councillor Pelkman. Any questions? I have one, and I'm going to ask Director Hoff, because I was interested in the web-based dashboard. If you take a couple minutes just to explain the dashboard to council.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to note in this update a pretty significant project that we're working on in order to visually show the location and type of building permits that the municipality is issuing and has issued since 2020. And 2020 is an important date because that's the date that we transferred to a cloud-based permit application form, and so that has changed the way that we're able to track the permits that are issued and then how we're able to convert them into a digital base. So if I can, I'm just going to share my screen and I'll illustrate. Sorry, I can't. Okay. So I'm only going to illustrate a portion of the dashboard. It is a work in progress. There's a few tweaks that we are making to it, but this illustrates, number one, just all of the permits that are issued in the municipality since 2020, and then we can very quickly queue in to one municipality. And so this illustrates the location of all of our residential permits in 2 years and by type. And the type is denoted, let me just, oops. Okay. So right here, what I can show you is in 2023, these are the location of the residential building permits in Mount Bridges. And so we have the ability, if anybody from the public is interested in knowing if there's permits issued, they'd be able to go to this dashboard to identify it, as well as by the type. So right now, we are showing all of the different types, and certainly we could distinguish them between whether it's townhouses or multi-unit apartment buildings or singles. And in addition to it being useful just to the general public to acquire information about building permits, because building permits is not one of those things that residents receive notices about, so really they need to call the office in order to find out if a permit is issued. So this would be a tool they'd be able to access. But the interesting piece is that as we are focusing more and more of our attention to intensification and infill developments, they can be captured and we can notice trends in those locations and types. Unlike how we are able to predict where future subdivisions are going to be, because we work with those in progress over a number of years, whereas those intensification units and the trends that we're seeing for that really aren't predictable easily, but we can do so by noticing them visually. And that obviously I think will have an impact on our infrastructure and planning for updates for that. So I just wanted to also plug that we're working on this for a planning application tool as well, and so that we'll be able to visually illustrate where planning applications are by type and location across the municipality. And I did also want to just take one moment to highlight one error that I did make in this report. Under the bylaw enforcement section, I noted that there was only a few occurrences in Southwest Middlesex that we're doing enforcement on. In fact, there was 88, and those represent separate properties, and many of those have multiple occurrences on the same property. We'll just leave it with that, but happy to answer any other questions that council may have.
Any questions of Director Hoff? Councillor Peltman.
Yes, thank you. I was going to bring up the Southwest Middlesex portion and just wondering how, now that we're half a year into doing it, how it's working out in the staffing and if it's preoccupying the amount of time you expected or more or less than what you had anticipated. If I can put that through you, Mayor, to the Director.
Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair to Councillor Peltman. So I think the quickest answer is we can manage the workload. What we have done is being very careful about usually assigning 1 day a week to Southwest Middlesex activities and being very cognizant about the locations of the incidences and just being efficient in the way that the bylaw officers are attending to those. And so it hasn't impacted our enforcement on our own community at this point in time. But it's certainly interesting because the variety of incidences are different between the two municipalities, so they are branching out a little and experiencing a few other occurrences that maybe aren't the same issue that we have here. So it's been going very well. Thank you.
Any other? Councillor Wilsey.
Just through the mayor to Director Huff, looking at the operating expenses and the amount of projected revenue we've realized, I'm looking at the number of building permits and how they're substantially down. But you've still spent everything that you expended for operating, which is makes sense because that's all mostly staff. But with the building permits down so much, how are we 53% of revenue if 6 months through, if building permits are down as much as they are? Could you explain that to us, please?
Thank you.
Director Hoff.
Thank you through the chair to Councillor Wilsey. I think based on when we undertook our operating budget for this year, we anticipated a slowdown, and so we projected a lower revenue this year, and so it appears that we're in keeping with what we projected to see in terms of the number of permits that we have.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. The council received report BBP-2023-89 for information. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now move on to 6.2, application for zoning bylaw amendment, 22182 Adelaide Road, Mount Bridges. Applicant is Gold Leaf Properties. We have a recommendation that ZBA 2021 be approved, subject to a holding provision. Someone to bring the motion? Councillor Pelkman, seconded by Councillor Hippel. Looks like Mr. Williams, you have a presentation for us, or a report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there's a report as well as the supporting documents from the applicant. This will be fairly straightforward. This was an application that was received a couple of years ago, but put on hold due to a question about the lot area. That was addressed. The application is now able to move forward. It's an application in the southern part of Mount Bridges, and is for 32 townhouses. There is a report on file with you that speaks to the policy and associated analysis. I won't go into too much detail, but I will say that a consultation did occur in March of 22 and May of 22 for open house and public meeting, and comments surrounding that are found in the report as well. Staff are recommending approval of a rezoning to increase the density here to allow for the townhouses. There is a H placed on this, or recommended to be placed on this to address stormwater management, which right now there is no outlet. So they're prepared. The work that they're showing on the lot works. They will need to secure that through site plan, and we will address that later. The zoning isn't the stage for that, but we in principle have it. It's the issue is that it has to connect to a pipe that is not yet constructed, and so the hold is in place until they have that construction done, and then we would move forward with a hold removal. So that's the only thing that wasn't discussed during the open house and statutory public meeting, but I raise it now. But nonetheless, staff are recommending approval of the proposal and the draft zoning bylaws on tonight's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any questions for Mr. Williams? Okay. Councillor Wilsey.
I just want to make a comment that I like the lot sizes, and we're not asking for increased density, and there's lots of parking, so it looks like this is a well thought out proposal, just looking how everything's going, and I know it's been a long time in the making, but looks like it's a good plan.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we have a motion second in front of you that we approve ZBA 20-2021 be approved subject to a holding provision. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion is carried. We'll now move to 6.23, a hiring request. I'm going to break this one into two. Recommendation that council receive report BBP-2023-98 for information. Someone to bring the motion to receive report. Councillor Hippel, second by Councillor Kennis. Any questions about receiving the report? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Second motion is that council direct staff to begin the recruitment process for a planning assistant. Someone to bring a motion. Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Kennis. Any questions or discussion? Deputy Mayor McGuire.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, once again, I'd be seeking a motion to defer this to the September 5th meeting so that the new CAO has an opportunity to basically address it. This will fall directly in her purview once she's here.
Seconder for Deputy Mayor McGuire's motion. Councillor Pammer, I believe, correct, this deferral style.
There's a motion on the floor.
I think the easiest way to do it is that this motion is on the floor and hasn't been carried or
Right.
voted on.
Okay.
So, Deputy McGuire is considering a deferral
Yes.
of this. So I think the easiest and cleanest way to do it is that if you're going to request that it be an amendment to the motion that is on the floor.
I would refer back to our policy on this. Section 42 addresses it. A deferral is one of the motions that can be brought while another motion is on the floor. Upon seconding, it is now, I believe, the motion that trumps the previous motion, and I believe this motion is up for debate should council want to. If the motion fails, then we return to the original motion. If the motion passes, it trumps the original motion and then it's deferred. It's the only way a deferral can actually work. It's a completely different motion than an amendment.
Yeah, I think I read the procedure. I believe you're right. Sorry, I believe you're right, Deputy Mayor, that it does trump. And is debate allowed on a deferral?
On a deferral it is.
Yep. Any questions? So we have a seconder that you brought the motion. Do we have a seconder to defer? Councilor Pammer did. Okay, any questions on deferral? Councilor Brennan.
Yeah, just if we're discussing the possibility of a deferral, this is similar, I think, to the discussion we had over the hiring of the cemetery assistant. And the point then was that there was a desire to defer that hiring until a new CAO came in, but we had said earlier that prior to a CEO coming in, if a department head wanted to have a hire take place because they thought it was necessary, they could come to council and request it. That's what happened, and we voted in favor of, council decided to vote in favor of hiring the cemetery assistant, and that took place. I just see this as a similar situation, so I guess we can vote on it in a similar fashion for a deferral and then go back to the original motion if necessary.
And I apologize, Councilor Brennan, as Deputy Clerk just reminded me, there's no discussion on previous, it's just discussion on the motion in front of us. So the motion in front of us is for a deferral. So Councilor Wilsey.
My only question on the deferral is if we're deferring to the September 5th meeting, does that give the CAO enough time, being they just start the week before, or should we look at further? I don't know what the issue might be with the timing of the contract ending, because I know it's a current person that we're looking at. Just don't know if maybe we should defer past that, or if the September 5th will get enough time for the CAO to be up to speed on this issue.
I believe that was directed to me, so
yes.
I strictly put it in the hands of the CAO to address at the September 5th meeting, however that is. I'm just putting it in the hands of the CAO, the new CAO.
Any other questions or comments? So we have, seeing none, we have a motion to defer the hiring of the planning assistant until September 5th. So we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Move to item 6.3, the Strathroy Library replacement. Recommendation to report CS-2023-19, titled Strathroy Library Replacement, be received for information, and further the council approves the awarding of the tender to Bullock Roofing Inc. for a value of $424,800 plus HST. Someone to bring the motion. Councilor Brennan, second by Councilor Kennis. Any questions? Councilor Pelkman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to address this question, I think, to Director Dakin. I know this quote is for the original library portion, but I also seem to remember a time not too long ago where there were shingles flying off the building at the back, and I'm just wondering if the re-roofing of that building is in the near future, or what's the status of that?
Through the chair to Councillor Pelkman, I believe the rear building was re-shingled 5 years, not even that, probably ago. So this is just for the front portion. The back portion has been looked after within the last 5 years. So there is no shingles flying off that I'm aware of.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Wilsey.
In the attachment, there was 3 different versions. There was different pricing for 25, 30, and 2 styles of 30-year roof. Is there any benefit, have we done the cost benefit analysis to getting another 5 years of life? If I'm seeing it's only 10% more, but that might give us another 5 years, if these actually do last a number of years, not like residential shingles. Is it worth it to spend that little bit more and then get 5 years more life out of it?
Yeah, the question, Councilor Wilsey, possibly to Director Littleborn.
Yeah, to Director Littleborn, yeah.
Through the chair to Councilor Wilsey, the cost benefit analysis, as soon as the value is over budget, we immediately go to the value that is approved by council, which is the $425,000. We, of course, would love to go with a more expensive roof that would last longer, but realizing that the funds are not there, and it is only going to gain us about 5 years, we didn't see bringing that forward as an option to council. But again, council can make the decision to spend the extra funds. Just keep in mind that staff again would be looking for an additional 10% on top of the number identified in that attachment for contingency. the roof was, did have a thermal scan done on it, and there was very minimal water damage. But we all know that there are items that will not be picked up in a thermal scan, and we do expect replacing some of the insulation that is currently there.
Any other follow-up, Councillor Wilson?
As a follow-up, just reading the recommendation, that it says the roof options 1 and 2, the 25 and 30-year warranty, both came in under budget. Is that not right? It says on your report that they both are under budget.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, that is Garland's budget, not municipal budget. The council approved municipal budget is $425,000. What Garland provided us with a report identifying the different styles of roofing, and those were their budget numbers, not council's budget numbers. So the budget number that council approved was $425,000.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor that report CS 2023-19 titled Strathroy Library Replacement received for information, and council approved the awarding of the tender to Bullock Roofing Inc. for a value of $424,800 plus HST. All in favor?
Just one question. Sorry, one more question.
We're at the vote, Councillor Wilsey.
Yeah, but are we also approving the extra 10% for the extra 42,000 they're asking for, or just what it says in the motion? Are we gonna have another motion to approve the extra 10%? Because that's not listed in the motion we're voting on.
We're voting on the motion of $424,800. I think we already had the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 6.3.2, small land purchase. I'm going to break this one in two. The council received the report CS 2023-20 for information. Motion to carry. Councilor Peltman, second by Deputy Mayor McGuire. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Move to item 2. Council directs staff to include option 3 in the 2024 Engineering and Public Works Capital Budget Program. Someone to bring the motion. Councilor Caddis, seconder. Councilor Pammer. Any questions or comments on the motion? Deputy Mayor McGuire.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm not sure if this would be to the Director of Finance or the Director of Recreation, but my question is, as the recommendation or the motion has been worded, to direct staff to include option 3 in the engineering and public works. So by doing that, are you just bringing that forward to us for consideration at that time, or does it become part of the budget? And if I'll just kind of give you an example, we had been approving stuff in the last capital budget prior to doing the capital budget, which I'd like to stay away from. So I'm not interested in going down that path, but the idea that it appears as something for us to consider, at the multi-year budget, definitely, I agree with that.
Through the chair to the deputy mayor. So it is, you are correct that basically what we're saying is that you select, we would recommend selecting option 3, and that you would direct us to add it to the budget, at which time you would vote on that budget saying yes or no. So right now it's just basically saying, out of all the options in that report, the best one is to add the safety feature, which is put the sidewalk in. So at that stage, we add it to the 2024 budget. When it comes to council, as far as the budget presentation, the council would then say, yes, we agree with this project moving forward, or no, we see a higher project, and it would just sit. In that way, we would be able to get back to the landowner saying that we're not looking to purchase the property from the landowner, and we're gonna look at another option, so.
Follow-up, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, so my follow-up, I believe, would be to the Director of Recreation. moving this recommendation, or this now motion forward, will the trail be removed from private property? And will it be diverted back to, I guess, the parking lot, which is down there by the little bridge? Or will it come up kind of through the ditch and onto the road? Doesn't really affect the motion, but I'm curious as to how that'll be done. Thank you.
Through the chair to Deputy Mayor McGuire, our intention would be to remove the asphalt pathway and direct the pedestrians down to the laneway that takes you into Alexander Park. That is the most logical approach. We could reestablish the trail outside of the boundaries of the individual landowners, but we're doing so in a ditch, which is very wet and at times full of water. So the most logical approach would be to direct them down to the laneway.
I would agree with you, sir.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Councillor Pelton.
Sorry, I don't mean to belabor the point, but I guess this would be also, I'd be through you to Director Strauss. Do you believe a sidewalk can be put on there without widening the road?
Through the mayor to Councillor Buckman, sorry, can you repeat that last word you just said?
Do you believe that a sidewalk can be put on there without widening the road? Just because it is on a built-up, with limited amount of space on either side?
Through the chair to Councillor Peltman, there would be a lot of slope work done with the sidewalk. We did work through the numbers of this year's sidewalk tender plus extra earthworks, I'll call it, and then strengthening the slope stability. The sidewalk would not have a curb present, it would just be abutting the road. But there was certainly enough space, and the slope stability was just really along the parklands is when we looked at that.
Any other questions? Seeing none, seeing the motion, it's been seconded. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Councillor Derbyshire noted, carried. Move to item 6.4, the Engineering Public Works, the Traffic Committee Update Q2 EPW 23-44. Recommendation that council receive report EPW 2023-44 for information. Someone bring the motion. Councillor Kennis, seconder, Councillor Peltman. Any questions for Director Strauss on the traffic report? Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I'm looking at the recommendation regarding Panel Lane. I've had lots of people talk to me about Panel Lane. It's currently 50 kilometers an hour, and the request was to have the speed limit reduced to 40, and the Traffic Committee has not recommended that. But I take a look, and I respect what they're saying, but then I take a look at say Head Street, which is a flat and wide road, and it's at 40 because of the school zone. And Panel is, it would appear, pretty rolling and gets pretty tight, and it's at 50, and there's significant traffic on there, pedestrian traffic from our area going in the area over by Head Street, going over, people walking over to the grocery store. So I guess I'm going to get a lot of questions about the speed reduction not being recommended on Panel when we have other 40-kilometer-an-hour roads that are very flat and very wide with really great sight lines, and Panel doesn't. And I'm looking at that and I'm saying I don't think I can support the recommendation that there be no speed reduction on Panel. And I would like to make the recommendation that the speed reduction on Panel take place and it go from 50 to 40, because there's been just so much contact with people asking for that. There've been a lot of near misses. It's anecdotal, I take you that, but having walked it for many years, I do know that it's really, really tight, and it's really quite dangerous, especially at dusk. So with respect to the committee, I'd be voting, I want to see that paneling get the reduction to 40 kilometers an hour. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Did you bring a motion to that effect, Councillor Brennan?
Well, I haven't done so yet because we're in a discussion phase, but I'm just injecting that now, and whether we have other comments or not, I may return and make that recommendation.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor McGuire.
Thank you. I actually have a couple. You can cut me off one after another if you so choose, Your Worship. My question would be to the Director, Mr. Strauss. Under item 1C, Glendon Drive at Bond Street, crossing guard recommended for 1 week. Elected official volunteer recommended. Are you suggesting somebody from council do that?
Through the chair to the deputy mayor. So when we did the traffic committee, we went through, we did discuss with staff members who are in charge of the crossing guards, and we are struggling to get crossing guards. And I know that we need more crossing guards, but in order to do so, we figured for the first week of school getting underway with a new pedestrian button, if there is somebody that's looking to volunteer, that's more what we were looking for. However, I didn't make a recommendation in the actual council report, it's just notes from our meeting.
So will you indulge me for a minute, Deputy Mayor?
I will shut my mic off.
No, you don't need to do that because actually I did, that one is near to my heart, the bond in Glendon, because the citizens, I actually did write down, elected official volunteer, if there's a volunteer, I will go out there for that week and help people cross roads. So thank you, I did write that down that I would do so.
I mean, I certainly agree with it, and I don't have a problem, other than I just want to ensure we're not staff, we're council. Huge liability doing crossing guards. We had a training program in town, I suspect we still do. So just not anybody can go out and be a crossing guard. Should staff, or sorry, should council decide to do that, we then become staff. I'm not sure how that sits in the grand scheme of being an elected official, that's all. And does that, being staff, would cover us through liability? Are we covered for liability as an elected official performing that function? It's generally a staff function. I'm not trying to be rude about it. It's a wonderful project fraught with liability.
Make them do the course. Make them do the course.
If they can find one big enough, Councillor, I will wear the.
I have a vest for you. I have to wear it in ingredient.
But
take the course.
Okay, but then the mayor becomes staff.
No, I think
to get liability, it becomes a liability issue. I know.
No, we're just getting missed is that they're not actually being a crossing guard. We do have a crossing guard there. It's for, tell me if I'm wrong, it's for the first week that the PXO, the overhead signage is there, so they're not acting as an actual crossing guard. They're just to say, push that button, there's how you walk across the road.
Okay, so I totally misread what was going on then. Is that correct? Like the PXO is going to be there installed and it's just having somebody there to show people how to use it?
Yes.
Is that?
Yes.
Totally misread it, my apologies.
That's good. Okay, we let you go.
Thank you.
Any other comments on that?
I have two more, hopefully they're easy.
Okay.
Item 1D, it refers to RRFP location suggestions. I need to know what the acronym stands for, please.
Through the chair to the deputy mayor, it stands for Rectangular Rapid Flashing Beacon. So it is the exact push button. It's not quite a pedestrian crossing, but it is located on Head Street at DeRuyter.
Yeah.
Last one, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I gotta get my screen to move. Oh, there I got it to move. My last one. So I'm on number 3H, Head Street North, currently 40. The request is to increase to 50. So it says recommended, hyphen, 40 kilometer recommended to remain in community safety zones. Head Street is considered a collector road. Are we recommending is the traffic committee recommending that it go to a 50 zone? or that it just remain a 40 zone, because we just did that, correct?
Through the chair,
Director
Deputy
Strauss.
Mayor, thank you. So we are not actually recommending anything out of our action. The traffic committee recognizes that the will of council and the community, I think, is to keep traffic speeds lowered. So we're not actually recommending to increase. However, based on our data that we have, and being a collector road, we always do look to move traffic. So the committee as a whole is saying that it should be a 50, however, we're not recommending that.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. And Councillor Hippel.
Thank you. I have two things. First one is I agree with Councillor Brennan. I've been up and down panel hundreds and hundreds of times. It is very dangerous, it is very hilly, and I would completely support what he's saying on that. But 1C, your Adelaide and Lions Park Drive, I'm just a question. I know there's no crosswalk present and that we have to budget for that, but does that mean because we don't have a crosswalk, we don't have a crossing guard? Is that correct, Director Strauss?
Director Strauss.
Through the chair to Councillor Hippel, yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so through your worship, back to Director Strauss. So is that something that we're going to look at then? You know, because it says to put in the budget that we're looking to budget it in, but in the meantime, we still aren't gonna have anybody there. It's just so busy with all the new homes and with the arena and everything. So I'm just curious as to, are we waiting for the multi-year budget? Is that kind of what we're looking at?
Director Strauss.
Through the chair to Councillor Hippel, yes. So the multi-year budget, we're going to look at all the priorities that we have, because I assume if we do one, I think once the Bond Street and Glendon goes live, I think that might be favorited or not. Pending the feedback, we'll look at putting that in our 10-year capital program. However, if the council does want a crosswalk there, you're more than welcome to vote on that at any time.
Thank you.
Any other question? We'll go to Councillor Wilsey, then Councillor Brennan.
On 3G, Veterans Drive, it was noted on a few different occasions to me about noted speeding on that. And this wasn't so much a speed, because they're not over 50, 60 kilometers, it's a very short road. The issue that was brought up to me was that kids use that road going back and forth to school. It's fire hall access if something's coming on. Legion is on that road. And the skate park's on that road. And really it's more of a pedestrian safety issue than a speeding issue. So my question is even though we're not reducing the speed limit, can we include in the capital budget to look at that being a higher priority for sidewalks or something for pedestrian safety? Because that is the other way around the school. It's a major route, and that's how kids from the school get over to Glendon to go to and use all the crosswalks we're talking about today. I think we should definitely, if we're not changing the speed limit, we need to look at something for pedestrian safety or a sidewalk along that road or a different path.
Remember that when it comes budget time, Councillor Wilsey. Councillor Brennan, you had one last. I believe your hand was up.
Yes, well, before we get to maybe the main motion, which is to receive the report for information, what I would like to do is to make a motion that with item 3B that the speed limit on Panel Lane be reduced from 50 kilometers to 40 kilometers per hour. I'd be looking for a seconder.
Deputy Mayor McGuire.
Can I?
Did we got to do the?
I need a clarification.
Okay.
That's all. I do second your motion. I'm looking for a clarification. Are we speaking Panel Lane end to end, which would run Drury Lane right across to Head Street, or from the highway east to Head Street? That's the only clarification I'm looking for.
I take your point. The section from Head Street over to the lights.
At Center Road, Victoria Street.
Yeah,
Thank you.
lights,
Yeah, I do.
And not the western segment.
I do second that, yes, thank you.
Just the eastern segment of Panel Lane east of the lights. That's good clarification, thank you.
Thank you. Now you second that, no discussion. Councillor Pelkman.
Just a comment. I believe that Drury Lane is 40 kilometers, so you're going to be 40, 50, 40. So if you're gonna make Penn Lane 40, you might as well make it all the way.
Councilor Brennan.
I have no problem with that.
So just my comment, I am going to support the motion when it gets there. I've got lots of calls too, like everyone, about Hall Street, and there's a number of roads that we have, and it seems to be those without curbs or gutters are extremely dangerous, and for lack of a better word, and I just wonder, Councilor, rather than, for lack of a better word, piecemealing and going here and going there, because I've got a long text train from people on Hall. Whether or not we should just look at overall a number of roads, and I don't know which ones those are, and looking at a speed reduction. We've talked about that before, about overall speed reduction. Again, we can, each time citizens bring it up or the traffic report comes forward to us, or do we look overall at a number of roads? Councillor Pelkman.
So I'm just gonna explain my thought process, because this is gonna get muddy. So for many years, I've promoted that Hall Road become one-way and Penn Lane one-way in opposite directions, because they both have the same issue. They're roly-poly and they're not good condition roads, except that we have one issue, and that Penn Lane isn't solely our road. And I don't even know if we have the ability to change the speed limit because it's not wholly our road.
Okay.
Just thinking about that, and
that's fair. That's fair. Mine was just a comment, Councillor Brennan, for future that.
I would support the motion anyways. I'd say we change the speed signs and see if somebody complains.
Yeah, one more, then we'll take the vote. Deputy Mayor.
I'll just comment about Councillor Pelkman's concerns. There was an agreement with Adelaide Metcalf and all of our neighbors that we surround as to who would take control of Panel Lane, Amiens Road, all the different roads. I don't know if that is still in place. It was put in place for purposes of investigating traffic collisions, quite honestly. So that may answer the question which you're looking for. Panel Lane, in fact, was Strathroy-Caradoc's responsibility under that document.
All right, so I think this discussion will go around, so I'm going to read back the motion that Council received report EPW-2023-44V for information, with the addition that speed limit on Panel Lane between Head Street and Drury might in fact be reduced to 40. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Traffic brings with a lot of discussion. Now we move to Chief Administrative Officer report. 6.51, revised member code of conduct. I'll break this into two. The council accepts report CAO-2023-04 for information. Someone to bring the motion to receive it for information. Councillor Kennis, seconder to receive the report. Councillor Pammer. Any questions on receiving the report? All in favor of receiving the report? Any opposed? Carried. Motion 2, council approves the revised member code of conduct and the council staff relations policy. Motion to approve the code of conduct. Councillor Canis, seconder. Councillor Hippel. Questions, comments? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for promoting me. My concern with it, extremely important document. I suspect a lot of this has come forth from the IC, at least that's what I understand from a discussion I had with the mayor. So one of the things I notice on the third document, the Municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc Code of Conduct for members of council and local boards, it references 6 different acts, 2 codes, being the criminal code and human rights code. Actually, the criminal code is an act, so is the human rights code. And then obviously applies to a number of different pieces of bylaw and policies within Strathroy-Caradoc. So I know there was definitely a problem. Perhaps that got put in place because they didn't do what I'm going to suggest, which is I'd like to see this reviewed by a lawyer, and I'm just going to suggest Wayne Mahar. Of course, if you don't know Wayne Mahar, independent legal company that is employed out of the county building, have him review it, ensure that it is complying with all those 8 pieces of legislation plus our own legislation, and then it can be addressed at the next meeting. That I'd like to have Mr. Mahar do that and then give us a briefing to ensure that we're actually putting out the proper document.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Wilsey.
When we're reviewing a document this big, there's a lot of pages to it, there's a lot of pieces. One thing that I find really hard to do as a new councillor is when I read through this, I don't know what's changed. I don't know what's new, I don't know what's old, I don't know where the problems were, I don't know why we're changing it. But what I would like to see on this one, at least as a start, is a redlined version. If anyone is familiar with Microsoft Word, you can do red lines, you can make changes, you can add comments as to why you've made that change. Similar, I think we did that with the official plan. There was 3 or 4 different redline versions that came out because it was a large document with lots of changes. I really don't know why we're changing these different things, what we're changing. I'm not saying it doesn't need to be changed or it doesn't need to be updated. I just don't know why, and I really don't know if I can approve something without knowing why it's changed or even what's changed, just with reading a long document. So I would like to make a motion to defer this until we can get more details on what was actually changed.
Okay. Second your motion, Mr. Wilsey, Councillor Wilsey. Yes, Pamela, you seconded it. Okay.
What's changed?
Okay, we have a motion in front of us to defer the code of conduct and the council staff relations report. Councillor Wilsey, seconded by Councillor Pammer. Did you have a date to defer it to? That has to be part of the motion to defer.
I would give staff time to review everything that changed to the second meeting in September.
September 18th.
September 18th. No debate, Deputy Mayor. We have a motion on the floor.
So my comments are to that deferral.
Okay.
So my comments are that I'm wondering if the proper terminology be, and it's over to Councillor Wilsey, is it a referral back to somebody? It's your motion on the floor. Is it a referral to get more information to bring back as to simply deferring it? Because I believe a deferral just says we're doing nothing, we're putting it over here. I made my statements about it, it's now your motion. Your statements didn't mirror mine, but were along the same line. So I'm just wondering the difference between a referral and a deferral. Are you actually talking about a referral, directing it to somebody to have a report that gives more information to come back? I just leave that with you.
The word I thought I used was deferral to get more information. So I thought I used the same word. I just asked for more information by the second meeting in September, is what I thought I had asked for.
I'll piggyback on for clarification. Defer is just defer it. Referral, what you're seeking to do is have clarification or input from staff. So really what you're looking for, Councillor Wilsey, is a referral.
All right, then, yeah, sorry, I will go for a referral then, just to get the more clarification.
Yep, thank you. Still, okay, Councillor Kennis?
Yeah, I just, I think we're heading in 2 different directions here. I understand what the deputy mayor is saying, to send it to the county lawyer to review it. I think I'm fine with that. But maybe that's part of the whole thing. Like, so he reviews it, and at the same time, we get a copy back with the proposed change. What are the proposed changes in the document? And then we come back in September sometime with recommendation, rather than, because now we've got a whole bunch of things twisting in the wind here, so.
So we have a motion to refer, and I just will make my comment. Actually, Councilor Wilsey had the same thoughts. Try to read through it and look as to what had changed to find those, so that would have been helpful for me also, so we have.
Can I ask just one question before we get way down here? It's asking us to approve the revised Code of Conduct of Council. Which document are we referring to? Like, there's two of them here, right? There's council staff relations policy and then the code of conduct for members. Are we approving both?
Yes.
So they're both being approved.
Right, but we're not according to the motion from Councilor Wilsey.
All right, I just want to make sure. I just saw two policies that represent different things.
Okay, we're gonna take the vote in a minute, Deputy Mayor. Yeah.
Thank you. I just, in order to help clarify, because Councillor Kennis and I are on the same page, so to Councillor Wilsey, would you consider amending your referral so that we get it referred over to legal, Wayne Mahar Legal, for his briefing notes back on, does it conform to all of the legalities that it needs to, primarily the Municipal Act. And then it would then piggyback onto what you're asking for is a red line version from staff. So we're going to get both that way.
I would accept that friendly amendment.
Okay. Second, Councilor Hammer.
Yes, I accept that.
Okay, we've got the motions. We have a motion to refer the two policies to legal advice through Wayne Mahar and referral back to staff for a red line version. That's the motion. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay. I move to reports from boards and committees. The recommendation reports from boards and committees be received for information. Are there any of the reports from boards or committees anyone wishes to discuss? Councilor Derbyshire, which one?
I just want to know, is there any surprises in the Mount Bridges Arena Committee thing? Like, do we need to actually go through and review this? Or, I looked at it, I don't see anything that would say, I approve, if I approve this, I approve something I shouldn't be. I just don't want to get caught with my pants down again.
We'll refer to Councilor Palkman as chair.
Thank you. Any action was already taken at the last meeting, so.
Okay. Fair question. I have a motion to accept the reports from the boards and committees. Councilor Brennan, seconder, Councilor Hippel, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We'll now move to consideration of the bylaws. Turn it over to Deputy Clerk.
So we have bylaw 52-23, and it refers to public meeting number 2 for the amendment to bylaw 43-08 regarding the property municipally known as 8157 Innendale Drive. So we just need first and second and third and final.
Motion bylaw number 52-23, receive first, second, and third and final reading. Motion by Councilor Hippel, second by Councilor Pammer. All in favor? Opposed? None. Carried.
Bylaw number 53-23, that refers to public meeting number 2, and that's to authorize the execution of an extension to a temporary use agreement between the municipality and Integral Farms, and that is regarding 8157 Innendale Drive.
Recommendation that bylaw number 53-23 receive first, second, and third and final reading. Someone bring the motion. Councilor Hippel, second by Councilor Palkman. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next is bylaw 54-23, and this refers to item 6.2.2. It's e-bylaw to amend bylaw 43-08, our zoning bylaw, and this is regarding the property at 22812 Adelaide Road.
Recommendation that bylaw number 54-23 receive first, second, and third and final reading. Someone to bring the motion. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Palmer. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried.
Bylaw 55-23 refers to public meeting number 1, and it's a bylaw to amend bylaw 43-08, and this is regarding the property at 130 Beach Street.
You have, bear with me here, bylaw number, what's that, 57? 5523, receive first, second, third, and final reading. Someone to bring the motion. Deputy Mayor McGuire, second by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Bylaw 57-23 is the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of tonight's meeting.
Bylaw number 5723, receive first, second, and third, and final reading. Someone to bring it. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Pelkman. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried.
Bylaw 59-23 is a bylaw to amend 64-22, being a bylaw to provide for the construction of the Salisbury West Drain 2022, serving part lots 19 to 21 in the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc.
Recommendation, bylaw number 59-23, receive first and second reading only. Someone to bring the motion. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Seeing none, carried. Thank you. Now move to County Council report. Deputy Mayor, is any of the highlights from the County Council?
Thank you. There is a report that's been added by the clerk, so thank you very much for doing that. I do want to thank staff for joining us at the Warden's Golf Tournament last month. Certainly 4 of our directors sitting at the back joined us. I think we all had a great time. Sticks, you can certainly swing a driver. That would be Director Strauss. I won't comment, they all played great. Tim Williams also joined us. We won't comment about how I play golf, but I had a great time. Your Worship, your team did exceptionally well, so congratulations on that. I do want to point out that the medals for bravery were handed out to the paramedic service. There was 5 gentlemen, including the Deputy Chief, that received their medals, and their stories were inspiring, to say the least. So those were very well deserved. And then, of course, we had an excellent discussion given to us about attainable housing. That was great. And then our official plan amendment number 3, which we've heard Tim speak about this evening, the planner. Finally, the county got theirs approved by the provincial government, so hopefully our OPA 14, I believe it is next on the books. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And yes, I almost did win the darn thing, but for lack of a play. Now move to inquiries or comments by members. We'll start with Councillor Kennis. Any inquiries or comments?
I know you're going to touch on the night market as well. I don't want to steal your thunder, but it was a great event last Saturday night, and it was so great to see so many people from the community out in the streets, and so many new people to the community, and children, and meeting with the BIA earlier today, they were very happy with the event as well, and it's great to see so many members of the community getting together for a really good event. So kudos to everyone involved, and that's town employees, merchants, vendors, everyone out there. So
thank you. Councillor Wilsey, any comments?
I'd actually like to give a thank you to all the farmers who are maintaining the roadsides and keeping them up. I know it's part of their responsibilities that have to do with their property, but the farmers in Strathroy-Caradoc, when I drive around, they take pride in their land and keeping the roadside edges and everything trimmed, and I'd just like to give a special thank you to them. As a second point, just given the discussion we've had tonight, I'm not sure if this is the right point for that, but I'm wondering if we could make a change to how we receive documents that are revised from staff in the future, if council's will, would be to have them all be red line documents so that we can all come to council more informed and have quicker discussion on the changes. Mayor, is this the right place to ask?
No, that's fine, and I wrote that down. I think we'll just, don't need a motion, we just take it under referral and when the new CAO starts. I think that is a good idea, Councillor. Councillor Derbyshire.
I'm good, thanks.
You are good. Councillor Brennan.
I just have to say that the staff at our aquatic center is doing a great job. The other day we had 36 people in the pool for Aquafit. There were 3 men. And rumor has it that sometimes it's been 2 counselors in the pool for Aquafit as well. But if you want a good time and a little bit of a workout, Aquafit's a lot of fun. And our young staff are doing a great job. And the pool's the place to be. It's a great deal, so you should get out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pelkman, any comments?
Yes, Your Worship. I had a phone call this morning from a resident that lives on Sutherland, and they have a request that Sutherland gets tar and chipped, at least until Scotchmere, that with the opening of Saxonville Estates through, that they've noticed a higher degree of traffic coming that way, and the net result of that has been a lot more ruts in the road, as you've got urban people driving in rural areas that speed up faster and create the ruts. And then also combined with the very, very dry May and June that we had, the dust was, he said, just unbelievable. It was a dangerous situation. If he pulled out of his driveway and someone was coming the other way, they wouldn't be able to see his car anymore. So he did make that request that Sutherland be put on the list for tar and chip for those 2 kilometers.
Thank you, Councillor Pelkman. I'm sure Director Strauss has wrote that down on his pad there.
Especially since I talked to him before the meeting about it too.
Yeah, pre-written. Councillor Hippel.
Thank you. You know, our community is full of pretty incredible young men and women, but I'm only going to focus on one tonight and just send out a huge congratulations to Mark Manowski, who is a Mount Bridges resident, one of long-time farming families in our community, was named to the Senior World Championship team and is headed to Budapest to represent Canada. So, oh, sorry, I didn't tell you. It's not hockey. You're all thinking, oh, it's hockey. It's not. It's shot put. Shot put and discus. He is very, very talented, as his whole family is very talented. But anyways, congratulations, Mark. We wish you all the best, and way to represent Strathroy-Caradoc.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. One, I just want to say how encouraged I am to see the intensification in units and the proposals coming forth for apartments and townhomes in our community. And I think that that's amazing, and will, you know, in the long run, when they all get built, is going to really put us in a great position for our residents. I just make that note because I feel like whenever I turn on the news, the province and the federal government are pointing fingers at municipalities, and I have to say I think we're doing a pretty good job. So I take great offense to that, and I think we have the stats to prove it. So that's really encouraging. Also, I just have one request. I've been asked several times by members of the community for an update on the status of the sale of the former senior center, please.
Just gonna ask, is it appropriate to answer that question in open session, or do you want to refer it to a report for a closed session?
I would say it's an open session. It's
okay.
Public, so that's gone through. So it'll be a report that will be brought forward by, I would suspect, the new CAO.
Okay. Fair enough. Just wanted to cover us. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I actually have 3 items I just want to bring forth, and they're inquiries to staff. The first one, Your Worship, is the Westdale Sifton subdivision proposal on the corner of Parkhouse and Rougham. Definitely has been a challenge for some of our residents down in the area, lots of issues going on. And certainly seems to be most challenging trying to move this forward, and I'm not sure exactly where we stand on it all. So I'm just looking for some information, and it can come by way of a report about exactly where we stand with this, what the issues are. And I'm not sure procedurally, does this ever come back to council? So if things have stalled, I don't know that they have, does it ever come back to council to say, you know, we've come to X, you know, how do you guys want us to continue going out and addressing this? So I'm looking for clarification for some of that. Again, I don't know if that's a closed session response or not. I will leave that to your decision. I'd also be looking for a report from Director Strauss. And I'm not specifically looking for something really long, although it may sound like I am. It's in regards to the theory that is used by this municipality and many municipalities when applying that 17.5 figure. And I know there's a terminology that they use, is it the PDC, the private drain connection? But there's terminology, and I know the director will know what that is, but the 17.5 was put in years ago by council, and what was the theory behind that? And then how was that applied in Mount Bridges to the Queen Street? I don't know if that is so lengthy that it would require the decision of council to move forward on. And third, just coming out of our discussions this evening in regards to the sidewalk along Victoria Street, I would like to hear a little bit of information, if we could get it from the county, about any future consideration they have for the redevelopment of Victoria Street, particularly down from the Victoria Street in Strathroy, essentially down to Albert Street. I hate to be putting a $100,000 sidewalk down there and have them rip up the road a year or two later, and in fact we would have repositioned our sidewalks. So, three reports. I'm not looking for them to be exhaustive at this point in time.
Just a reminder, Deputy Mayor, though, that reports need to be the will of council.
Yeah,
individual councilors can't direct staff or reports. So if you want to bring a motion for each one of those reports, and a seconder, and it'd be a vote, that's the proper way to ask for reports.
Okay, thank you. So on the Westdale Sifton, I'd make a motion that we receive a report on the Westdale Sifton. I think they're referring to it as a servicing agreement is the step that they're at.
Seconder, Councillor Wilsey. If there's any questions for the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Brennan.
Through the chair to the appropriate director, how much staff time would be taken up in creating such a report?
I believe that would be Director Hoff.
Thank you, Your Worship, to Councillor Brennan. It could probably be done in September, likely by the second meeting in September, perhaps, best case.
Through the chair, how many staff hours would we take preparing that report?
It would take several, maybe 4 or 5 at least, or more.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have a motion and a seconder from the Deputy Mayor for a report on Westdale Sifton subdivision. All in favor? Okay, we have 4. Did we see the hands again? Okay, opposed? 4. I vote in favor and I break the tie. Second motion, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I'm just looking for a motion on, let's stay with the theory behind, and if I may ask Director Strauss, what's the terminology we use for the way, like the services? There must be a terminology you're using. What am I looking for?
Director Strauss.
Through the chair to the deputy mayor, it's called a private drain connection. So PDC is the short form.
PDC.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking for the theory behind the PDC when that was initially brought in.
Okay, you have a motion, seconder, Councillor Derbyshire. Any questions as to the, Councillor Hippel, then Councillor Pelton.
I guess, oh, sorry, through yourself, Your Worship. My question on that would be, I mean, I know where you're going with it, and there's lots of questions there, a lot. But I'm not sure, Director Strauss, is that maybe, do you have all that information? Because obviously that wasn't in your time, right? Is that something that goes back way before you? I don't know, because it was before me too.
Yep, Director Strauss. Sorry, just jump in, Director
Okay,
Strauss.
through the chair to Councillor
Yep.
Hippel, I actually think I was the first one that brought the report to council, unless other staff can speak to that, but I think it kind of started with me, so I can bring all those reports gathered together. But essentially, I can kind of let you know a very high level is a private drain connection. The reason why we did bring this forward was so when we do go to, I'll say, surface mount bridges as an example, because that's where the focus has been. There are areas in Strathroy, but anytime we bring a sanitary sewer past the property, it's really just all the cost on the user system, and the residents, apologies, are benefiting from this. So that's where we started this fee, because the residents that are receiving this private drain connection don't, when their septics do come to fail, they will not be connecting back to their septics. They will then be connecting to the private drain. So the municipality, instead of subsidizing all the other people on user fees, we decided to move forward with having the private drain connections charged to the benefiting homeowner.
Okay, why don't we save it for the reports we have? Any other questions? Councillor Canis, then Councillor.
Well, I just wondered, because I recall we approved that 17.5 3 or 4 years ago in council, something like that, like just perhaps just resurrecting that original report with how we came to that number might do what you're looking for, I guess.
And it may be, it's really like, at some point in time, somebody said, we should do this because, the theory behind it. And that's, I don't have that information. I wasn't here on council. And so when I get challenged about the questions, why this? I really like to go back to that guiding principle and then move forward from there. I'm just looking for that at this point in time. Thank you.
I think that was in that report, like the theory behind all of that. So.
Councillor Wilsey.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of this was included in the most recent one where it came through, where we actually increased that fee. But there were some questions brought up that as to why we're charging for the road and why we're charging for the pavement. So maybe some of that with a comparison to other municipalities, because I've researched this at length, and I have a lot of residents come to me at length with their research as well. And one thing that seems to be different between our municipality and other ones is that we actually charge for the paving and road and the asphalt and the sidewalks, where other municipalities, from what I'm being told and a little bit of the basic research I've done, are only charging for the actual infrastructure and not the actual road service on top. So that might be where the difference comes in. But I would like to see how that breakdown is, and just maybe take a look at how other municipalities are doing that in addition to that.
All right, so I think, yeah.
I was just going to say, like, I get there may be other conversations that come out of this. I'm just looking for the starting guiding principle. I don't know if I'll have further questions, or other councilors will have further questions.
So you have your motion, it's seconded, I believe Councillor Wilsey seconded it. All right. Councillor Derbyshire, I apologize, got mixed up. Have a motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any, carried.
And then my third motion would be just for a quick conversation and a report back to us from the county on what they see for Victoria Street from their center road. I was going to say Victoria Street because it makes the curve, but essentially the top of the hill down to Albert Street before we have that discussion about the $100,000 sidewalk.
Pretty fair. Seconder, Councillor Kennis, were you seconding that?
Yeah, and just a comment.
And a comment, yes, sir.
I wonder if, maybe just not that road, if we could get something from the county as to what their plans are on roads within our municipality over the next, our multi-year budget that we're talking about.
I'll amend my motion for all county roads within the Strathroy-Caradoc boundary for the next. Well, I don't know, they'll have a plan, so they'll provide what they have.
Yeah, whatever they've got on their books, I guess, so.
Yeah, are you okay with that? Yeah. Any other else? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, it's now to me. Councillor Kennis, you said exactly what I wanted to say about the night market. So it was very well received. We both sat in on the BIA meeting this morning, and I know that the members of the BIA were very excited about it. So kudos to all the staff who are involved, and I'm quite sure, Director Lilborn, that you'll pass along our sentiments to your staff that, and all staff that were involved in it. Also, like to take, before I do what I want to do, I'd like to take an opportunity to thank Director Dakin, who sat beside me for these past few months. This will probably be his last time sitting up here for the near future, but Director Dakin, thank you for all your help through this, and I believe I speak for all the council when I say that you stepped up, and it's greatly appreciated, and I know you've put up with all my questions. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for all your help. So it is greatly appreciated by all of us. I think we all know, and unfortunately we were here today, I was interviewed by CTV regarding the ongoing drama with our neighbors and the servicing agreement, and I couldn't talk either the acting CAO or deputy clerk and turning the TV on, see how I did, but that's one thing. But I will tell you that I am reminded of one quote, and this is from a famous US politician. You may have heard it lately. You're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And there are facts that are germane to this, and I want to bring it up because I know I don't speak for all the council, but I will say one thing about this council and staff and past council. We've been very good at not, for lack of a better word, airing our dirty laundry in public. We've been very respectful and just gone about our business, but there is some misinformation, and that seems to be the term that's bandied about these days, is misinformation, and there is a bit of misinformation out there, and if you indulge me, I want to clear it up because I have no ambition to become a keyboard warrior and write a long thing on Facebook, so I'm just going to take a moment to read something. So, and I do know I don't speak for all of council, but I'm confident that we're all pro-growth. Doesn't matter where it is, but I know that this council is pro-growth, no matter where it is. If it's good for the region as a whole, we recognize that it's benefit the citizens we represent, Strathroy-Caradoc, and that includes medical facilities. But here are the facts that currently are at play. Strathroy-Caradoc did win the latest appeal. In fact, we were awarded court costs. Upon the latest ruling, Strathroy-Caradoc Council gave two directions. One, empowered the mayor, me, to begin negotiations with the mayor of Adelaide Metcalfe. Secondly, as an act of good faith, council okayed the connections to the Cuddy property, which is the site of the medical center. There was one condition, however. We asked our neighbors to drop the legal proceedings and do not appeal. The cost of legal action for both municipalities has been immense. This is tax dollars we both could use elsewhere. Seems ridiculous to me to continue the waste of everyone's tax dollars. I verbally communicated the will of our council to both the mayor and the CAO of Adelaide Metcalfe on the afternoon of June 23rd. Upon the filing of the appeal by Adelaide Metcalf and the beginning of renewed legal proceedings, things changed. We were forced to reach out once again to our lawyer for advice, again incurring costs that are totally unnecessary. Here are the facts. In the past, our attempts to negotiate a settlement while legal proceedings are underway have been, for lack of a better word, used against us in the courts. Within the initial OLT ruling, the Strathroy-Caradoc must have thought there was still an agreement because they continued to negotiate. In their latest appeal, Adelaide Metcalf refers to this on page 7, bullet 8. So our attempts to negotiate, and for lack of a better word, are thrown back at us. And here is one of the most important facts. In the absence of an agreement that has an indemnification clause, there is no, and I repeat, no legal protection from liability. I'll refer everyone to the Safe Water Drinking Act that was a result of the Walkerton crisis. The absence of a liability clause imperils not just council and staff, but the citizens of Strathroy-Caradoc. We simply cannot afford the risk of a new connection. Strathroy-Caradoc did not seek an ongoing legal battles. We asked to end them. Ending the legal battle would have meant negotiations would have brought us closer to an agreement, and the medical center probably would have been closer to reality. But our role, I want to speak to the citizens of Strathroy-Caradoc, our role as your elected officials of Strathroy-Caradoc is to look after your interests. That is what we are doing. Facts matter. I encourage you to reach out to any of us for clarification. Again, everyone is welcome to their own opinion, but you're not welcome to your own facts. Thank you. With that, I can make a motion that we now move into closed session to discuss a property matter regarding safety concerns and a procedural matter to approve in-camera meeting minutes as permitted by section 239, the Ontario Municipal Act, and Council's procedure bylaw. Motion going to closed session. Councilor Brennan, second by Deputy Mayor McGuire. All in favor? Opposed? None? Carried. And we're back. Report on in-camera. Council in camera had a discussion around a property matter regarding safety concerns and a procedural matter to approve in-camera meeting minutes as permitted by section 239 of the Ontario Municipal Act and Council's procedure bylaw. That being said, I have a motion to adjourn. Councilor Canis, second by Councilor Brennan, all in favor? Opposed, if any?